What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, our Wednesday afternoon show, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Go to gomuskox.com, order your flannels today, and if you order by December 15th, you can enjoy free shipping on your Muskox flannel in time for Christmas. So December 15th, get your order in, free shipping on your Muskox flannel in time for Christmas. I think I'm getting the Huntsman plaid next. That's the next move to help my ever-increasing girth look slimmer and just more digestible for my wife, if that makes any sense. You too can look more digestible for your spouse, more tolerable, whatever it is, more palatable. Go to gomuskox.com and place your order today, and $15 off for Couch and the Rube listeners if you use the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F. Jason, how you doing, brother?
The way I feel right now, Nick and Steven are options.
And we said, would somebody please guard somebody?
What's up, buddy? How about a muskox for every day of the week? That way, get 7 of them.
Yeah.
Pick one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Why not?
It's a good yeah. I'm not quite there yet. I need to get there. I'm at 4, I think.
Let's just wear the same thing, like comfortable pants, muskox, shoes. That's it. Every day, right in your closet.
It's amazing what it does for my third chin. It really helps decrease it to like a second chin. That's really the
I know. I was hitting golf balls yesterday, and a friend of mine took video of me, and I saw the side of my head. It's just like, oh my God, just can't stand the side of my head.
Yeah,
so big and weird.
There are certain angles right now.
Oh, it's the worst. We had it's like 3 angles. Like when we went to the Lugnuts game, and I took a picture of you hammering your food, and then you took a picture of the back of my, like we were taking pictures of the back of our heads or something, and we're just like, what are we doing? We have like 2 angles, maybe.
Yeah. Take some time. Yeah. Well, so hopefully most people are just listening to this instead of watching, because then you know what we're talking about.
Tune in for a minute, see what we look like, and then go back.
Yeah. Should be a fun show today. A little late in the week usually for our hot take show, but I think it's going to be a good one. Apologies for that. I was traveling early in the week, and we had some scheduling snafu yesterday, and so we are here today to.
I thought Izzo was like holding you hostage.
No,
I got that sound clip from one of your questions, which was pretty funny. You were first up after the Nebraska presser.
Was I first up? I don't even.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
From what I watched on YouTube's.
Oh, the one with Steven. Yeah, him saying that Steven Izzo was an option. Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
That we're going to get into that as we get in our hot takes and yours. Do you want me to go?
Oh, please.
To go first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. It was either going to have to be MSU basketball or sticking up for Lansing against Detroit. Which one of those.
Oh yeah.
One of those two deals.
That was great. Did you guys like set that up or something? Or
it was all fake. It was all play. No, not at all. I was getting on the. I was at the Omaha airport. And I start seeing people texting me about it and tweets about it. It's about an editorial from the Detroit editorial page. Editor basically saying, and it was not a serious column and that she thought they should move the state capital, but it was the idea that they should move the state capital to Detroit. And what did come across is serious were the digs at Lansing. There were a lot of digs at Lansing. And so as the defender of Lansing, I knew right away, I was like, I think my first tweet was like...
Yeah, but you're Detroit, though.
What's that?
I mean, they're still Detroit. I mean, you can rip on Lansing all you want, but I don't know.
Well, yeah.
There's things going on in downtown Detroit.
It was just ignorant, too. There were lots of things that... And she just said she hadn't been here much. Like, well, come visit. I mean, we got lots of... She took swipes at our Mexican restaurants. We got lots of great Mexican restaurants. What are you doing?
How did she take a swipe?
She just said she came here for a visit, and her colleagues warned her about the Mexican food. Now,
oh, man, imagine those colleagues.
I told her to get new colleagues, which are unfortunately my colleagues.
Yeah, you guys are something.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Critics and Yelp reviews from you motherfuckers.
Had to stand up for Lansing. But my first take, we'll go MSU basketball. So the center position obviously becoming an issue, right? Again. And the reason this is such a miss, the reason they're hurting so badly at center, and the reason that the timing of this particular situation on the roster where they don't have a seasoned center who can really battle with the top centers they're going to face, and with just good centers they're going to face. The reason it's such a miss is because of what's happened in the NBA and what's happened with NIL and the transfer portal. But the NBA and NIL especially, you have to recruit centers almost more than anything because the big guys, the landscape of big guys is changing. The NBA doesn't want them. And so there are more of them in college basketball. They have more financial value in the college game with NIL. That's why Zach Edey is still around, Hunter Dickinson. Arizona's got two big fellas. The Duke kid comes back. Even Nebraska, which didn't really recruit one, got one because they're out there and they're like a top mid-major grad transfer is available. A little bit of NIL, transfer portal's there. You go get them. And that is where, like, you cannot miss at that position. Point guard, never, anyway. And what's interesting about Tom Izzo's stubbornness on the center position is twofold. One, when he had an issue at point guard a couple years ago, he went and fixed it right away. First of all, they recruited A.J. Hogard when they had another kid committed who eventually decommitted, and they didn't care. This is point guard, and they needed to trust they had the position. And then when they still weren't sure a year later and the Foster Lawyer thing wasn't working out and all that stuff, they went and got Tyson Walker out of the transfer portal. And now Walker's mostly playing off the ball, but that wasn't the intent at the time. The time was you got to make sure you're okay at point guard. And at center, now I think it is only fair to see what Jackson Kohler is when he comes back and how much he changes who they are offensively, how much he's able to just give them the boost that they need before you're overly critical of it, because they couldn't have known he was going to get hurt, and they thought they had three centers, and between the three of them, they thought they were going to be okay. And at times, they've been okay with the two they have, Carson Cooper and Mady Sissoko, but not nearly enough. And in Sunday's game was really a defining moment in that sense, because the other things were actually better. The offense Michigan State had struggled with so much was actually better in certain ways. They shot the ball okay. They were, I thought, pretty good in transition, even off made Nebraska baskets. There were some things that came together that hadn't been there. Malik Hall played well. And you lose for another reason. And it's because a guy who's, a kid who'd been at Bradley, good center, but not like an All-American, has 8 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. And he's controlling the game in ways your guys can't. Your guys combine for a couple points and 3 rebounds. Like that's just the ultimate red flag. It's a huge problem. And I talked about small ball in the column I wrote, and I know that Fred Hoiberg said when Malik Hall's out there, it creates problems. And yes, that is true. There are times they can throw a smaller lineup out there, and I like the idea because I think the strength of this team is their personnel and their backcourt and the wing, and you get more of those guys on the court together, the smaller you go and make it a problem for other people. I think that's a nice idea. But there are going to be centers they face where having Malik Hall out there just doesn't cut it. And the other team will be able to dictate too much to play small ball. And so you have to figure out the center position. And I don't know, and I'll rest on Jackson Kohler in a lot of ways, a little bit on Carson Cooper, because I do think he's a guy who's still developing. And we saw him develop within a season last year from a guy you couldn't even play to a guy who had some really good moments. So maybe even though he's not going to get stronger within the season, you're going to see development within the season from him still. Mady Sissoko is what he is. And it's just not enough. And, the sad thing for Sissoko, in some ways I look at him and I go, convince that guy to be Dennis Rodman. Convince it not the personality. You don't need to show up in
go to North Korea
bridal dress and go meet with dictators. I'm saying what I mean is be that. I mean, he's bouncy enough. He's big enough. Just be a great rebounder, but he doesn't seem to have the knack for it. And that's not going to change. He's 4 years in at this point.
Or throw some elbows and scare people at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's going to play still. And so for the 10 to 12 minutes that he should be in the game, you've got to be all out everywhere. And once Kohler comes back, if it's 4 fouls, so be it. But you are all over the place. You are an aggressive, intense MF, and that.
But if I'm Kohler, I'm kind of pissed at Sissoko and Carson Cooper because there's a lot of weight on Jackson Kohler's shoulders. I mean, if he comes out there and flops in the first game, maybe he has 2 points, 3 rebounds or something. I mean, how is this kid supposed to build some sort of confidence? At least they could have helped him out while he was injured. Izzo's in the talking about Steven Izzo and all that stuff about starting or something. But
I think it's actually better for him. Yeah, there is some there is pressure on the sense that they need him.
Yeah.
But there was a chance when the season began that and this is before we knew Xavier Booker wasn't ready to contribute in certain ways. But there was a chance we looked at it like, well, if things come together, where is Kohler's place going to be on this team? Now it's very clear. And I think also for Kohler, what he has to understand, and I think he will, because he's a really skilled offensive big man and can do a lot more than I think he showed last year in terms of passing. Last year, there were times where he would get the ball and he was looking to score rather than create. And the player I watched in highlights and I've seen at times at his best is a guy who also sees the floor pretty well. And what this particular team needs is, yes, they do need him to be a low post scoring option for them, but they also need a guy that can throw the ball to the post and it comes back out. They need a guy that can play out of the high post and can hit them on passes. They need a guy who changes who they are offensively. And so I think his, him understanding that where he's going to separate himself is those other two guys really don't do that. And they don't really have a big man who can do it. Hauser could do it. Malik Hall, when he gets double teamed, kind of dribbles out of the double team and gets him out of trouble, but he doesn't create out of it. And that's just not his strength. You see Carson Cooper is a guy who will come up and do the high screen dribble handoff stuff and understands that, but he's not going to whip passes around, and Sissoko can't do any of that. So I think they need to change who they are offensively, and he gives them the best chance to do so, and some of that is through the passing. So he's going to have to also understand that maybe differently than he did coming into the season. What's going to give him great value is not necessarily his points, it's also assists. It'll be really the plus-minus. It'll be the field goal percentage of his teammates when he's on the floor. All those things will make him invaluable and make him the guy they have to go with more often than not.
So more Malik at the 5 then?
Well, in certain matchups. Now, Xavier Booker, though, it is to the point where you got to just play him some anyway. And I think Izzo realizes that, and I think he at least alluded to it. We'll see if he follows through after the Nebraska game. Because it is one thing to say he's not physically ready, and maybe he will get pummeled. Maybe it'll be this is what Sweat
against Baylor. He's going to play him.
I think so.
Wow.
I think it's okay if he takes some lumps. You get better by being in there, and if the other guys are going to do what they did against Nebraska, it may look different. You may get pummeled even more, but you may also be able to, as you get your sea legs under, you contribute in different ways that makes it not any worse. If the other guys play better, or if Jackson Kohler shows up and can play, pretty quickly 17, 20 minutes a game and really does a lot of things, then the need for Xavier Booker is less. But at a certain point, what are you doing? You just lost at Nebraska with two big guys who didn't get it done. And so why not let the guy, the big, and look, and Izzo's right that the idea that he's a savior and he was overhyped, and guys like me did not. When I say he's not a savior, did I say he's not a savior? He's not a savior. Guys like me did not see it, did not see how much work he still had to do. I didn't think I could tell last year watching him play that he wasn't going to be like an instant star. I didn't think he was going to be Jaren Jackson Jr., who wasn't even an instant star. It was a developmental piece, but I thought he'd be able to contribute. But there's some overhype, there's some mishype certainly on the recruiting services. But there's also, I think this is what happens when you don't see him in intense college basketball situations, which is natural. You see him in AAU situations, you see him in high school situations, you see him in money ball, and he is bouncy, he is athletic, he is skilled, and so it all looks like, well, that ought to work. And at this point, though, if it's not working with the other guys, you got to find a role for him. It doesn't have to be a huge role, but he should feel a part of things. I do want to say this, though, because I hear a lot of people say, well, he'll be gone next year. He's going to transfer. They're not playing him. There are a couple things. One, from everything Izzo says, his parents are sort of on board with this process. He's okay. The other thing is, from what I know, his NIL deal is pretty damn sweet. Talking about the highest paid guy on the roster. And based on his production, I'm not sure he gets more anywhere. Like, he'd be walking away from a fairly decent situation. And so where NIL is not always helpful.
So someone wants a return on their investment, I'm guessing. Maybe see him play once in a while.
You're not going to demand that out of Izzo. Izzo's going to play what he thinks is best for his team to win. The problem is, playing the other big guys didn't do you any better. And you do need to start getting wins. There's no doubt. At some point you have to win games to get into the NCAA.
Sorry, the YouTube went down. What was I saying?
You pay Jared Goff.
Yes. So these last couple games, and including whatever playoff game that we make, we're guaranteed a playoff game, right? It might not be at home. We have 9 wins. We're going to make the playoffs, right? I mean, I'm sure there's a scenario where it happens. Anyway,
if you win the division, you get a home playoff game too.
But I don't know how much we pay Jared Goff. I would like to pay Jared Goff, but weeks ago we were talking about him getting $41 million a year or something crazy like that. I know we have offensive line injuries, and when your center goes down like Frank Ragnow, it's not easy to sit there and patchwork guys in. I understand that. But Jared, you have to get rid of the ball somewhere. You know those guys can't protect you for that long. You're holding on to the ball for 2.5 seconds. You just can't do it, especially when you can't maneuver and at least buy your guys some time with your legs. You can't. Everything has to go right, Graham, and I know this Denver game, it's a must-win game. It's at home. It's against Denver. They're on a little hot streak, but we should be able to take care of Denver at home. I don't know. I don't know what's up with the defense. It's bend, don't break. I don't know. We need to get, Aaron Glenn some more players. I don't know what needs to happen. But I have just resigned myself after that Bears game, Graham, to all right, this season's been fun, but I guarantee I don't know who we could play in the first round that would make me feel comfortable whatsoever. And by the way, I know I said Stafford could come back, and I know he signed an extension with the Rams, but there's a way to figure it out, right, to get Stafford back in here. A Stafford deep ball to J-Mo is exactly what we need. And Jamison Williams, how much time do we waste on this kid? I mean, throughout the season, throughout suspensions and all this other shit. I mean,
I think it would have been I think it would have been easier to get Stafford back if Sean McVay had walked away like some people thought he was going to.
Stafford probably wouldn't sign that extension.
Right, and even now, if he walked away at the end of this year, which I don't think he is, but like the idea that, how many years is Stafford's extension?
I think it was 3
years,
2 or 3 years, which is backloaded. But I mean, imagine the legacy Stafford could have. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams and then comes back, kind of like LeBron did with Cleveland.
Win it with the Lions.
Oh my God,
it would be incredible if he could stay healthy. Yeah,
because there's situations in when you watch Lion games that you go, man, if Stafford were here, because the guy's a gamer, he's tough. He can throw a deep ball. He can maneuver out of things. He's not the fastest guy, but he at least can get some time for his receivers to get open.
Yeah, I'm out on Jared Goff. And and obviously,
who would you replace him with?
Well, that's good. It's not that you have to get rid of him. He's got another year on his deal, and I don't care about his feelings.
Right.
So what I'm out on Jared Goff is the ability to have the run of success that everybody wants to have with the Lions over the next few years. I don't think can happen with him. Now he does. Again, as you said, you're evaluating the next few games. Like, he has the ability still to change the minds. And obviously you can do that in the playoffs. You don't have to win 3 playoff games to do that. You can play really well at Philadelphia or San Francisco, and everybody goes, okay, all right, that's doable.
Just stop turning the ball over.
Correct. You got small hands. You can't do it outdoors. You're not quick in a game that's increasingly built for mobile quarterbacks. You need a lot of things to be perfect around you, and football is the great Mel Tucker used to say, is not a sport of perfect.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for all of that.
You're always going to have offensive line injuries. You're always going to have injuries. It's what it is.
Right, but at the center position, it is tougher than a tackle or guard. But
again, you build the perfect team around him. You can win. I don't know to what level,
but you can't have a perfect team with the injuries the way they're going.
You're never going to have a perfect team in the NFL late in the season.
No.
And he's not good enough to win without perfect. And you're going to enter your window. I don't know if they're in their window yet because I don't think they built the defense enough to really be in their window. But you're about to be in your window. And the Lions, who never got to enjoy the rookie quarterback contract under Matthew Stafford because he was drafted, and this is part of their misfortune, before the rookie salary scale came into place.
Of course. We're cursed.
Yep, and same with Calvin Johnson. They never got the benefit of that. It used to be bad, but you had to pay these guys $6 zillion right away. I'd like to see the Lions go that route where you're paying your quarterback a lot less. You're certainly not going to pay Jared Goff more than he's making now at this point. And Jared,
you don't extend him, right? You make him play that next year if we end up fizzling out here and losing the first round.
The contract would have to be really, really friendly. And he would have to understand, and he should have that. Like, if you sit down with Jared Goff, do you want to be a starting quarterback on a winning NFL team? This is your place to do it. And I don't care what Daniel Jones makes with the Giants. Daniel Jones is never going to win the Super Bowl. Until they get rid of him, the Giants aren't going anywhere. They've just wasted time. They've wasted Saquon Barkley. They're just spinning their tires. You can make that contract deal, but you don't follow that. That's a dumb decision. So you have to sit him down and say, do you think you're better than this? Do you think you're good enough to not need a good left tackle? Because if you do, that's fine. But then you got to perform that way, and you haven't done it. I really would like them. You're right. You don't want to waste the season. You don't want to just get rid of him for nothing. But I wouldn't hate if they drafted a quarterback this year in a really good quarterback class. We don't know what Hendon Hooker will be. I'm not going to count on some later round backup. But I don't want the message to him to be, put it this way. If Michigan State's going to run off Peyton Thorne, the Lions should not be eager to pay Jared Goff, for fuck's sake.
How do those two relate? I mean, other than their quarterbacks.
What I'm saying is it feels like there's a lot more people saying pay Jared Goff than
because
they also wanted to run out Peyton Thorne.
Graham, we're going to have fucking Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell on Thursday. Jared Goff looks like a Hall of Fame quarterback next to those two guys.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he?
Yes. Dude, watch Easton Stick on Thursday.
Okay.
And you come back and tell me.
There are a lot of bad quarterbacks. And right, you don't get rid of a guy unnecessarily, especially when he's under contract the next year.
But that's the reason why you say pay Jared Goff. Because, who else is going to be out there? If we can find an alternative, like maybe Matthew Stafford, I'm all in. I'm willing to listen to any idea.
If you cannot win a Super Bowl with a player and you come to that realization, there is no point in paying him, period. And I think I am almost there.
Then why trade for him? Because you saw it with the Rams. He ended up getting there, but he fizzled out.
He's been better than they thought. He was brought in, I think, to be a stopgap. He's been better than they thought. Yeah. And he's allowed the stopgap to go longer than they thought.
Because when things are perfect, he can dink and dunk down the field.
Correct. It's just things are so.
Then why draft a wide receiver that can run a 4.140 if a guy can't throw the ball down the field?
For your next quarterback.
I hope.
That's why you do it. That was my second hot take on Goff. What's your next one?
Okay, the Shohei Ohtani deal has my mind blown for a couple reasons. I didn't know that was even fucking legal. I know that there's all these underground, these baseball rules and the salary. There's no salary cap, so you have no idea. Did you know about this, that you could defer? Ohtani is going to receive $2 million per year for the next decade, and then $68 million per year between 2034 and 2043. This absolutely trumps the Bobby Bonilla deal. But it was interesting listening to people talk about Ohtani. I heard Steve Phillips, the former Mets GM, on Dan Patrick. Oh, I wouldn't sign him. I wouldn't. That's why you're an ex-fucking GM, Steve, banging Lansing fours at ESPN. I just don't understand how people are looking at Ohtani. This guy's unreal. I know that he's had a couple surgeries on that elbow. But even if you're getting batting Ohtani, you're getting everything that comes with that guy. So why would you not? The deferment is like, why wouldn't Chris Ilitch get in on this? You can have a decade of Shohei Ohtani. You can figure it out by then. But in a decade, you can't figure out how to pay him $60 million or sell the fucking team.
First of all, as a Lansing 3, I take offense to your Lansing 4 comment. But
look up the story.
But I also think, I don't know that I like the system in place. First of all,
I've never seen this.
$2 million a year in L.A. Dude, come here and make $100,000 in Lansing. You can live a better life. There's not enough to. Anyway, that's.
But he makes $35 million in endorsements. I know. So he's going to be fine. And
I don't love it though. First of all, it's weird that the next ownership group is going to have to pay this guy probably.
Is this tax evasion, by the way?
I don't know.
He's waiting a decade so he can leave L.A. and not pay those hefty taxes.
I'll tell you this.
It's great to be rich.
Going to the Dodgers and the Dodgers sort of finding this loophole that exists that's legal and allowed makes Ohtani a lot less likable. That's my take.
He's still likable.
He's still likable. But
I hate the Dodgers. I'm happy for Mary Hart.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I'm glad it would have been fun if a place like Detroit had him, and we all would have celebrated it if it happened.
How about just be in the mix?
But he's going to spend most of that contract, being a hitter or a pitcher. And it's not. It's still worth it because
his fan base, they want to see his every move. You're gonna make
your money back.
You're gonna make your money back eventually.
And the thing is, even if he winds up being just a serviceable bullpen arm late in his career, that's still another guy you got in the pen. You know what I mean? It's still
and
another
Ohtani
option.
And his agent said they were willing to do this deal with any team.
Yeah.
How would you not sign up for that?
Yeah. Well, but.
Dude,
Chris Ilitch isn't willing to pay this later. He's not willing to pay it now. He's not. I mean, it's
just keep paying Javi Baez.
Yeah.
Play like complete ass.
Yeah. No.
I've never heard obviously the Bobby Bonilla deferment, but I didn't know that this was possible. But congrats to LA. It's going to be ass.
I have a Pistons take to go with my third.
Poor James Edwards. I read his column this morning.
Yeah. So. I do think the Pistons have to be careful, though. And a lot of people want big change. They want Weaver gone, Troy Weaver gone. They want the owner gone, whatever. You want lots of changes. And I'm okay with admitting things haven't gone right, and if a change needs to be made, a change needs to be made. I do think they need to make a trade in season to help them win more so that these guys can develop. But I also think you're still in a situation where you're trying to learn as much as you can about what you have. And you don't want to give away Jaden Ivey and 3 years from now go, shit. Yes, the Cade Cunningham injury set them back a year. That stinks. The injuries this year, which have been ridiculous. I don't know how they have that many injuries in the sport of basketball, took away any potential shooters they were supposed to have that would give them some spacing, and that stinks. They do need to make a move, but the one thing I would be careful of is people have just watched them go through the Stan Van Gundy era and all this stuff with different priorities for different GMs and different basketball minds. It is real easy in the NBA to get stuck in purgatory, to be in a place where you don't have young pieces and you're 10 years from anything. See the Chicago Bulls. You do not want to bring in a new GM who then wants his people or wants to blow it up or do this different, who's a moron, in other words. You got four pieces that you really, really need to evaluate, and that's Cade Cunningham, and you got to find out what sort of duty is, because in the new NBA with the second apron and all that stuff, you really get to pay two guys. So you got to be one of those guys. You got to be a first or second dude to get paid. You got Jalen Duren, you got Asar Thompson, and you got Jaden Ivey. Those four guys you got to get a true evaluation of, and I don't think being in a losing culture to this degree helps. I think they do have to make a move. I wouldn't be quick to move one of those four guys, though. I would do anything I could to keep those four in place throughout the rest of the season, and I would play those four, and I would try and get the best evaluation you possibly could.
But you have to explore a trade for Cade, right? Just even if you just hear
for
what
Cade?
the offers. Yeah.
No.
Just to hear what the offers are? I mean, his value is going to be as high as it probably gets. You have to. I mean, this is historically bad. They haven't won a fucking game since the World Series was tied at 1-1 or something like that. I think James said that. It's ridiculous. Something needs to change. When I watch the Pistons and I watch Cade Cunningham, I've watched basketball for a long time, and I know that he's a fundamentally sound player, but there's nothing that jumps out of the TV that makes you go, "Oh, we're going to be good." Just have to wait a little bit.
I think he can create. I want to see him with guys that fit him, and they don't have that right now, and that's frustrating. And it's
But you can't get rid of the coach. You can't fire the owner. So what does Troy Weaver do?
Well, you do have Bogdanovich, who's, the guy that's coveted. Now, he's a shooter. He's a shooter.
Great locker room.
He's a shooter, right? So you got to be a little careful there. He is.
Why? You're not going to win any games. Trade his ass.
But what you need is to begin to win enough that these guys start to feel decent, and you can evaluate them with the right pieces around them. You got too many big men. Make moves there for guys when they're. I think you obviously have to trade there if somebody has a need. And if you got to get rid of if you got to get rid of an Ivy, maybe I wouldn't do it though this year. I really wouldn't. I would let this play out this season. I would try to help this team become a little more functional, so they're not having these disastrous third quarters. But I would be very careful about moving on. There are a lot of morons in pro sports. And in
is
Detroit,
there another 8-foot French guy that's coming out next year so we can get the number 1 pick?
Yeah.
And
the clear message you hire a new GM is these guys you inherit, they're your guys, just like you drafted them. Do not sit there and try to tear it up. Do not tear it up unnecessarily, because you do that in the NBA, it's just another decade. You're just waiting. What's your third hot take?
Now, there was 2 games on Monday Night Football, and people were kind of tweeting out about how difficult it was watching 2 games. Graham, as someone that has 2 TVs going constantly, especially like Cousin Sal, he said, I find watching 2 games at once more difficult than watching 7. I mean, like, Sal's got probably one of the best hookups ever, but other people were complaining about, the button on my remote's getting work done tonight. Dude, TVs are literally, you can get a 40-inch TV for like $112. You can't just put that when there's another game. You can't figure out somewhere to put that. I know some of these guys, the wives, don't like an extra TV, but you can't sit there and beg the wife to let you kind of watch 2 TVs for one night. I don't get it.
TVs are the only thing that haven't gone up in inflation too. But
it's crazy.
Why
was everybody kind of freaking out?
Yeah, no, you can easily set up a second TV these days. I find it distracting to try to watch 2.
2 is I'm going to go 3.
Yeah.
I go 3 sometimes, but that's the max.
It was just weird to have 2 simultaneous games. I don't know why you do it. It doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense.
I enjoyed it.
All right.
I saw a play down there and saw a play up there.
Yeah. Well, it is true. Football is better for it than soccer because, like, football, there's so much just dead time.
Oh, I know. There's none in soccer.
There isn't. And in
trim that.
In football, I learned this because I was when I was in Omaha, by the way. Not Omaha. Where was I? Lincoln. I was on the treadmill trying to get my fat ass in shape. And so I was doing this thing where I would walk at a very brisk clip, and then I would run for 2, 3, 4 minutes at a time, get a mile run in while I walk 2 miles, whatever, just trying to get a sweat, get myself back towards something that's not embarrassing. I mean, Zion was a big deal because he was a huge guy, and I just broke my chair. So the first day I'm doing it, I'm watching Mexican soccer, and there's a constant pace to it. So the second, I'm watching Bears-Lions while I'm doing it the second day. And it was actually timed it out pretty well because for every 3 and out, there are 2 minutes of football and then 3.5 minutes of commercials. That's what football freaking is. If you get a 3 and out, it is 2 minutes of football, 3.5 of commercials. And even if there are 3 and outs in a row, they never say, we've done enough commercials. No, they go to commercial again. And so there is more commercials than actual football if there is not a first down on a given drive. And if you only have 1 first down, it's probably about equal. Anyway, that is a story not worth telling, but I shared it anyway. Presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing. Just an incredible place for a date night around Christmas and the winter months. I love the cozy vibe, a good American stout at the bar, just out of the frost over the windows. It's got character. It's cozy. It's got a great menu. Go to midtownbrewing.net to check it out. And if you take somebody there on a date, they will be impressed. It's got a vibe that is not. It's got character to it, and it's got a friendly staff and all that good stuff. All right, you ready to dig into these listener hot takes?
Of course. Eric Schultz up first. Number 1, MSU needs to go 11-7 the rest of the way in the Big Ten to be in the NCAA tourney. That looks impossible right now. 2, the fact that Izzo is still recruiting well isn't the counter argument you think it is to the Izzo's lost his touch take, Graham. And 3, Madi Sissoko is Izzo's Andrew Maxwell. He can't play. There's 0.0 chance they get where they want with him playing big minutes. And the one person on earth who can't see that is the head coach.
So let's
coach my team.
Yeah. 2 and 3 here are sort of. Let's get into these. The idea that he isn't recruiting well isn't the counter argument to Izzo's lost his touch. I think part of it too is it's not just Izzo's lost his touch, but he doesn't have when he doesn't have the guard that can get him places. It doesn't matter what his touch is. When he has that guard, when it's Cassius Winston, when it's Denzel Valentine, it works. When Keith Appling wasn't playing well, it didn't matter if Tom Izzo had his touch, right? When they had Kalen Lucas at his peak, Tom Izzo had his touch. I think a lot of it is about having the right point guard for him, and that's really important. And for that guy, when he hasn't had that, rarely if they had really good seasons. And okay, what you can say?
Oh, no, I was just going to go read Dominic's next.
Oh, no, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Pump fake me.
10 more minutes on this one. But it's I get your point there, Eric. With Sissoko, though, I'm with you. And I, it's tough because these are college kids, and I like Matty, and we say that all the time, right? It's a nice guy. But it's not just that what he hasn't grown into, it's how it affects the game around him. It's how it affects his teammates. And, if I'll give you an example. Like Antonio Smith was a guy who, now he was often playing power forward, a little bit different era, had very little offensive touch around the rim. Could rebound the heck out of the ball, though, too. But he saw the game. I mean, famously, the game against Princeton in the NCAA tournament in '98, when a lot of people were picking Princeton in that 4-5 matchup, he was the one who called out every backdoor from the back. You know what I mean? Like, if Mady Sissoko just had a little bit better feel, he could have the physical limitations he has. But because he doesn't have either, and they don't have another guy, who's bulky enough to deal with certain guys, I guess. But it is what it is at this point, and I'm very curious to see what happens when Kohler gets back and how those minutes are distributed. I don't think that Sissoko should be playing more than 10 to 12 minutes a game on a team that has designs on doing anything. Now I'm ready for Dominic.
Dominic next. Number one, you got to stop the Graham and Levitt versus the world shtick and acting like MSU fans bypassed him. Nobody is doubting him, Graham. If you remember, it was your homie Harlan that butchered his handling while you were writing stories about 1987 hand-holding at the MSU Planetarium. 2, Graham said that we didn't take a portal big because Izzo was worried about Sissoko's feelings. Then Graham said it was because we didn't want to recruit over Booker. Well, Sissoko is the worst player in America. Don't even try me, Graham. And Booker doesn't play. Now what? 3, Couch, your hot-ass Hondo-esque personal diary take last week was truly an all-timer. Jonathan Smith saying, I didn't choose you before I choose you now. Bro, do you think the kids don't text? If Smith did something that insane, he would lose both quarterbacks in 12 minutes and bonus. And when we lost both QBs and had to bring in Noah Kim back, your ass would say, I may not bet on Noah Kim, the quarterback, but I'd bet on Noah Kim, the man. I love Levitt too, bro. I also love Dua Lipa, but she ain't going to fuck me. Drop this, please.
I am taking the over on Arizona State as soon as Levitt plays, naturally, just so people are aware.
Couch versus Levitt versus everybody.
And I think Nebraska made a big mistake screwing around with what's his nuts from Ohio State. And I think Levitt's going to be better. But I will drop it for your sake, Dominic. And I'll also drop it for the sake of he is not who Michigan State has. I still believe it's going to be Aiden Childs. And that's a really good prospect themselves. Building a quarterback room is going to be a little more interesting, I think, when you have the guy who is twice been picked by the coach, who's a young quarterback. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that. But that's going to be a problem everywhere in modern college basketball.
I think Dominic has a shot with Dua Lipa.
Oh, I wouldn't.
Could happen.
Yeah, I would never bet against Dominic in anything.
JD next, number 1. Take all the NIL money from the basketball team and give it to Aiden Childs. 2, when you knew going in that your 5-star freshman center was going to be a project, excuse me, and your other underperforming centers are still around, you need to go get a guy in the transfer portal. Yes, we're doing this again. And 3, there's nothing more ironic than stating someone is the most important person in college football and not voting them first in your Heisman ballot. Who's that? Who did that?
I mean, I put him third. Jordan Travis.
Of course.
But, I was sort of being tongue-in-cheek, and I don't know if he's 100% talking about me, because I was saying that everybody else thinks he's the most important person. I think Florida State should have been in the playoff, so I'm not the one who kept them out of the playoff. So, to me, it was Michael Penix was the way he elevated that team, what it allowed them to do in that system, everything. That he was the choice for me.
Steve, next. So you spend countless hours recruiting a high school 5-star to play him his freshman year. Then he transfers his second year. In business terms, that's poor return on investment.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to transfer. And if he does, he does. There's a lot of that, though. There's an argument that you should never recruit the one-and-dones almost ever, because most of them, especially big fellas, you spend more time on – you spend more time recruiting Max Christie than you had him on campus. You spent Jaren Jackson Jr., as good as he was, they got to the second round of the NCAA tournament. He wasn't ready to beat the Syracuse zone, and you get 1 year out of him. Now, I'm not saying you don't recruit Jaren Jackson Jr., but that's the reality is you'd always rather have Cassius Winston. You'd always rather have the guy who's just a little too small for college, or for the pros, and gives you more college years. And there are some things about this particular class, like a guy like Jeremy Fears, not the biggest dude in the world. He becomes a great college point guard. That's a good sweet spot guy to get, right? The other problem with that idea that I just said, and if you were to counter me and call me a moron, thank you, you would say, well, if you don't have pros, though, you have what Michigan State has now. You have a lot of guys who aren't quite good enough, who are just old, and for some reason aren't good enough to win as big as they should. And so that is there is the counter. There is a sweet spot you have to find, college stardom that is not quite what the NBA wants. It's really the situation with all big men right now in a lot of ways, and it's why those guys, I think Izzo is going to have to reevaluate how they look at that position going forward. Now, again, I think Izzo thought it had fixed itself a year ahead of time. I think he thought he had, between the three guys, they would be okay, and maybe they still will when Kohler is back. A year from now, Sissoko will have the option of another year. I'll just put that out there for people. But say it's Cooper and Kohler, and Booker's back, and now you've got two juniors and a sophomore. Like, you might actually not have to get a guy next year. And don't throw fruit yet, but it is a tricky situation. And it does appear, as you look at it now, that they should have been, more aware of what they had at the position relative to who they were up against.
Kurt Wisniewski next. Number 1, it's time to panic about the Lions. Jared Goff's small-gloved picket hands are starting to show their issues. 2, there's no panic for the basketball Spartans. In Izzo and Nick Sanders at center, we trust. 3, the Pistons are forcibly relocated to Seattle to allow expansion in the D.
No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. I do want Seattle to get a team, but there's no.
Not Detroit.
There's no doing that. Time to panic about the Lions. Yeah. Panic. I think it's just disappointing. It's like it's disappointing because it looked for a minute. They were playing so well, like they had actually turned the corner.
Graham, it's panic because we don't know if we're going to win a game the rest of the year.
They're going to beat the Broncos.
All right.
Russell Wilson just had a kid. He's distracted. He's the most annoying fuckstick in the world.
Wow. In the world?
He's up there,
over
man.
Your boy Elon?
Like, Russell Wilson is why you don't interview athletes on podcasts and radio shows. Zero personality, zero. He's got a stupid-looking face. I don't want to say anything. I can't stand the guy.
What did Russell Wilson do in an interview or something?
I know he's a weird guy. He gives you nothing. I can't stand people who just give you nothing. And maybe it's just weird people who give you nothing that drives me nuts. Maybe that's some of my issue with Jim Harbaugh at times. It's Jim Harbaugh and Russell Wilson. And I don't see they're the same person, but they have characteristics that drive me nuts. It's being weird, and it's disrespecting the person. Just be yourself in front of them. I don't know. It drives me nuts.
Annie, next. I only have one. Rare players like Miles Bridges and Jaren Jackson Jr. create way too high of expectations for high-ranked freshmen that people haven't even seen play against real defenses.
There is something to this, that when you do get those sort of, those guys who are real difference makers, as freshmen, there is a difference between them and a lot of other guys. Like one of the problems with the rankings by Rivals and 24/7 and On3 and ESPN, whoever else does them these days, and they probably should fix this. And I've had this conversation with Izzo. He'll tell you that every year there are really 5 to 8 truly impact freshmen coming out. Now, some classes are better than others. And in the peak of when Kentucky was rolling, they were getting like 6 of those guys, right? Duke was getting 2 of them, and maybe there'd be a guy or 2 left out there. But that's not where the star system moves. The star system, okay, you get to 20 or whatever it is, and now 5-star goes to 4 stars. Your 4 stars pretty much all the way to 100. It's not based on when the ability actually leaves. It's how many guys, and that's a mistake. That shouldn't be that way. If we were going to use these recruiting services and take them seriously, they need to be a little more nuanced than that. And so the amount of times that MSU has actually had one of those guys who is, and in Booker's year, this is where the ranking was inaccurate, wasn't fair to him, and I understand why people got caught up with it. And it was also a weak year, but he isn't one of those guys, at least out of the gate. And I still think he's going to be a really good player. I do. There aren't many guys who have the things he has. And so as long as the motor situation gets to a reasonable place and he's patient and doesn't screw up his career, doesn't mean he has to do it all at MSU. I'm just saying there are guys who bounce around and it never happens. I still think he'll be terrific. But you're right. You get a Bridges and he scores 33 points in his first exhibition game, or Jaren Jackson, he's getting 8 blocks in early games. It does. Those guys are almost, I don't say grown men, but they're ahead of the college game when they arrive, and that's just not many freshmen.
Nate Rhodes next. Number 1, Foster Loyer would be an MSU great had Izzo switched him to play the 2 spot, running around screens and just being able to shoot instead of handling the ball. 2, this is more of a question, but is the redshirting rule for basketball different than basketball? Why can't Norman play some minutes in some early games to see if he would bring any shooting to this team? And if he's no better than what we have, just redshirt him. 3, this MSU basketball team will turn it around only if Izzo for real will. If Izzo was for real, with getting the football pads out and doing what he used to.
Yeah, I don't know if that works. I don't know if that's
I don't know if kids buy into that shit anymore.
Yeah, you get beat up. I don't know. It's I mean,
we're gonna get those pads out, and like, oh boy.
It's like famously years and years ago, he was angry with the team, and so all they got post game was like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right?
And we said, would somebody please guard somebody?
And that was their post game meal, and they had to deal with it, and it was sort of a lunch pail. This is what we're doing. We're taking away the rest of the fun stuff.
Regular Joe.
They would just take themselves out to Mitchell's at Eastwood now, and and they can all afford it. They don't need to. I don't need your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Some of these guys make more than the assistant coaches. So I mean, that's just a different. It's a different mindset. I don't know if they're going to get beat up the same way. To your final point or final question about Garrick Norman and the rule. Yeah, the rules are stupid in basketball. That they're different in football. You would love for a guy like Garrick Norman to get time now to develop or to see if he's ready in a real game situation and then make that evaluation. In football, it's 1/3 of the season. You could do that in basketball where guys could not play more than 10 games. But it could be at any point in the season, and you could still get the red shirt. You don't have to fake an injury. You probably wouldn't include the postseason because otherwise people would try to really game that and would go against the spirit of it. But there's no doubt, I think, if they had that ability with Norman, you would see him in a few settings, and they would see how it went and make a decision, and it should exist, and I don't know why it doesn't.
Sunshine Spartan next. Number 1, Lions will win Saturday and clinch the division before the last game. 2, MSU Hoops is brutal to watch. If they plan to make the tournament, they need to go with a smaller lineup. 3, Graham and Rube took your advice and bought a Muskox flannel. I hope you are correct. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too, and you will love it. And anybody who does will go to gomuskox.com to order yours today. Many great choices. You know what you look good in. Like I look great in blue. Makes my eyes pop, right? So I like to have blue. I like to have some blue on me somewhere. Certain types of orange and beige just make me look just hideous. And you would, So I don't go with those sort of things. So you'll see the ones you love. You'll love the feel. You'll love the fit and the durability, the comfort. It's a perfect time of year, and it's a great Christmas gift for just about anybody in your life. To gomuskox.com, and again, $15 off your purchase with the promo code HOFF, HOFF. To the idea that they need to go smaller, I think that's a useful lineup in certain matchups, and we got into that. But it's not just Zach Edey. There are other big men where that's a problem, and it'll wear Malik Hall down. But I do think Hall creates some problems for a center. You could see it at Nebraska where the mask kid, he had to keep an eye on. He kept pointing at Hall, and he was keeping an eye on him, and Hall was out on the perimeter on offense, and it did adjust what Nebraska was trying to do. So in certain matchups, if you're trying to dictate things, you should absolutely look at it, especially if what you're getting is what you got the other day from MSU's bigs.
Call me Al. Next, number one, Graham has already penned the article explaining how Kohler's footwork saved the season.
Absolutely.
2, money aside, college football coach is one of the worst professions on the planet now. And 3, NIL funding will decline significantly soon. It's a novelty waste with no return.
I'm very curious to see where it goes over the next 5 years or so. I agree with you in certain ways. The collective space, a lot of places, and it, obviously if NIL comes in-house, that could be a whole different discussion, like Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, proposed. I don't know to what, if we'll actually get there, but there is no return on investment, and you have to have return on investment eventually. Gray hairs forever aren't just going to pay, hey, I guess Ishbia doesn't have that many gray hairs, but there's eons, tons and tons of money, whatever it costs to have the program win at a certain level. There's certain guys who can afford that, and you'll see some of it some places, but ultimately it's just not. I don't think it's the future of college athletics entirely. Players are going to get paid, but I'm saying the setup right now, I'm very curious to see where it goes.
Sad little volleyball dad next. Number one, we all hate Michigan, but way too many of you have faith in the team that should have lost to Auburn. 2, if my team is going to suck, might as well make some money off of them. And 3, imagine losing the under on the Army-Navy game like that.
I didn't watch the game. What happened?
I did not see it either.
Yeah, I don't usually. I don't have a lot of interest.
I respect the troops,
That's all.
but I just can't watch that game.
Yeah, it's like "Proud to Be an American," the song, right? It's the lyrics, great.
Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say.
Imagine being like a studio executive and greenlighting that to ever be released.
Chad Latz?
It doesn't sound any better than Chad Latz's version.
It's true.
I mean,
I like Chad's version a little better.
It's the melody itself is just hideous. It's freaking awful. It's awful.
Andrew Zuiza next. Number one, Izzo has brought me many good memories over the years, but he has responsibility to all these players, and he failed them. He doesn't dip into the portal because of loyalty, in this case, to his centers. But now the other players can't be the best versions of themselves. 2, other teams are getting better, and the Lions are getting worse. Flip from last year. And 3, Izzo thought his stubbornness would get him another natty, but it will cost him his tournament streak. I actually feel bad for him in a way.
I think I'm going to do a column this week on just what it would take, and I still think they get to the tournament. There's just more ability than, and I think the schedule is set up poorly, and they've had some bad luck in terms of Wisconsin's better than they thought. Malik Hall being sick, I think, did play a big factor in that. I'm still not there yet on the tournament streak being in real jeopardy. But what's going to get interesting is obviously Baylor's a good opportunity for a resume win this Saturday. Oakland's a decent team. Indiana State is a lot better than anybody knew. I don't think they would have scheduled Indiana State if they knew they were going to be this good. Like the final game of the year.
Larry Bird's kid on the team, or what?
Have you seen that big guy? He looks like a 7-foot version of me and you. But he's phenomenal. But they're really good, and they play them on the 30th of the month, and that's actually going to be a challenging game. Like at the end.
When do we start betting against Michigan State? Well, you don't bet.
I'm not going to bet them, but
I know you won't. But honest question. Like with the Tigers bet, when they...
I get a weird feeling about this Baylor game that it's actually, in Detroit and the way some of those games are going, it's going to be up and down. They're going to play well.
Could go either way.
Yeah, no, I do. I think it's a 50-50 game, and Baylor's number 6 in the country. And Michigan State's still top 35 Ken Palm. They're better than I think. They've got issues, and they've got a thin margin for error in certain ways, but they're better than their record. Everybody talks about this 4-5 record. They could be 8-1 if they wanted to schedule that way. They could be, they could be 9-0 if they wanted to schedule that way.
9-2 like Nebraska.
They could have Nebraska's record if they wanted to schedule that way. They could absolutely have Nebraska.
Keep the schedule. Just win a couple games here and there.
Yeah, no.
I think people are used to the tough schedule in these months. Max Spade next. Number 1. Can SD4L hire Delvon Rowe and Raymar Morgan to play on the MSU scout team? The Bigs need to learn some toughness. They learned some lessons getting pushed around by guys 4 inches shorter than them. 2, I drank the Lions Kool-Aid, but it tastes bitter. And 3, living in Metro Detroit is tedious at best. What was Nancy Kaffer thinking? Just trying to get clicks?
So she wrote she's the Detroit Free Press editorial page editor who wrote the column about the state capitol. Yeah, look, I don't want to take shots at Detroit, but I do not find suburban Detroit to be that attractive to me. The traffic.
Have you been to Greektown lately?
I'm talking about Detroit itself. I like Detroit itself. I'm talking about suburban Detroit, which is where most of the people live who are Detroiters, quote unquote. That's all I'm saying. And look, Lansing's got a lot going for it. People shit on Lansing, but there's a lot to the lifestyle you can live here. And you're somebody who lives in Ovid.
Yeah.
But
I'm the mayor
work
now.
Down here. Right.
It's crazy.
But you can have that. You can have a lifestyle where you live on a farm, you live in the country, and you work in a city environment. You can have those sort of things. Hard to do in Detroit. There's a lot of stuff here that's convenient, that's easy, that's affordable, and that's fun. And if you think there aren't things to do, you're just not looking. How many more things are there to do in Detroit than here? And if you don't live in the actual city of Detroit, I would challenge. I pointed this out in the column. Say you live in Rochester, where on a good day it's 40 minutes to downtown. It's double that here. So unless you're going to 40 pro sporting events a year, why not live here, actually be able to afford your house, have just as good Mexican food, a lot of interesting neighborhoods, much more convenience, and just spend 40 more minutes when you do actually want to go to a game. Sorry, I didn't mean to shit on Detroit.
It would be nice living down that way if you went to concerts and, like you said, sporting
all the time,
events.
Right. Yeah, no, if there are things you want, and I get it, and a lot of jobs down there, and so I'm not, a lot of our listeners are there, and we love you, but I just don't come after Lansing. That's all I'm saying.
Alex James next. Number 1, Izzo will deliver more sound bites for the show following a shellacking to Baylor. 2, a team with a top 100 recruits having a losing record is quite impressive. I guess talent doesn't mean shit in college hoops. And 3, death, taxes, and the capital in Lansing. Suck it, Detroit.
Yeah, Michigan State has not played up to his talent. It is not as good as its the sum of its parts are not as good as its parts. I don't think. And I think the most discouraging thing, though, again, was with the Nebraska game was just that they lost in a new way. That I actually thought Jaden Akins played okay. Did some things. He had a couple moments where he scored on the break. 1-3 when they were down 46-40, where it was like, boy, they really need a bucket. He hit it. There was a point where they had a bad lineup that Izzo probably shouldn't have had in there, but Akins was the primary scorer, and he scored 2 buckets. He did pretty well. And I thought A.J. Hogard played pretty well. He's played pretty well a couple straight games now. There were a lot. Malik Hall obviously played well. There were things that they did that they hadn't been doing, and then when they do it, they're just not good enough at center, and that's discouraging. And again, the transfer portal stuff and all that. Let's see Jackson Kohler. I think that, for me, and I wrote this I've written a couple straight columns now on the center position and stuff, but for me, really questioning their decision not to go into the portal and give a team that they thought had a chance to win big a better chance at doing so. I'm going to hold off on that until I see what Kohler is and his impact on the team, because that's what they planned on having. And if it doesn't make a difference, then it's a discussion that needs to be had.
Rich Searing next. Number 1, I'd bet a dozen groovy donuts Graham ignores these takes like he ignored my questions because I submit them using email instead of Twitter. F Twitter. F Elon Musk. 2, this basketball team truly looks dysfunctional. I'm suspecting there are locker room issues similar to when Kalen Lucas and Darrell Summers were seniors. Izzo doesn't have an explanation, or at least he's not admitting it. I'm beginning to think he has no idea of how to fix this team. And 3, interesting defensive coordinator hire. Not who I expected, but interested to see what he does. Rumor is he doesn't blitz, and that bothers me, but maybe he'll adjust his philosophy.
Yeah, I don't,
he doesn't blitz ever?
Never. He's against it. His guys run away. They run the other way instead. I'm looking forward to getting to know this staff and seeing how they operate. It's in this period now where, I know as much as you do about some of this stuff. Because I haven't studied Minnesota's defense. I've seen them play okay against MSU. I've seen them be good at times. I think Rossi's a guy that is well regarded, but every fan base will hate every coordinator at some point. So at some point, he will not be liked, and that's just
So learn names now.
That's just the way it is. I don't, the idea that this is a dysfunctional locker room. I've been in that locker room a fair bit. Now we're not in there when they're all together as much and interacting as much, and I don't know that it's a really close-knit team, but I think it's a team that gets along well enough and likes each other. And I have not seen with my own eyes locker room dysfunction, and so I think that I'm just, if I saw locker room dysfunction, I would tell you I have not seen it, and so I'm just giving you what I have.
Kiwabit next. Number 1, a wise man once said, "A friend who bullies us is no longer a friend." Great article, Graham, on the freak arrogance of calling Lansing a sad little town. I also come from a little town and have to fend off arrogance. 2, Sam Levitt commits to Arizona State. Sam, seems they passed you over in the recruiting as well.
No doubt. I mean, there's a little bit of hypocrisy with that from Sam and going to a place that, and he probably gets in the portal and you realize there are a lot of places that didn't want you initially. The difference with Jonathan Smith and Oregon State is they were like less than an hour from his home in Oregon, and they didn't want him. And that probably felt a little more personal. So I think that is different. But it's, look, college kids aren't going to always make extremely rational decisions. That's sort of. I
don't do it at 44, so.
Yeah, no. And let me say this also, too, going back to the previous point about dysfunctional locker room. Like, it's not just the locker room. Like, they have practices that are open, and a lot of that stuff's off the record, but, there's some stuff I think is okay to share. Like, there's a moment in the last practice where they're running, like they would do these things where they have to shoot free throws. Izzo picks a certain guy out of the lineup, and he has to then make a certain amount of free throws or the whole team sprints. It's sort of the idea of pressure, like you miss your teammates run, right? And so they were running. A couple guys missed here and there, and Tyson Walker and Nick Sanders were the top 2 guys, right? Not surprising, Barry Sanders' kid and Tyson Walker out front. And watching sort of the playful nature of Tyson Walker with Nick Sanders and the two enjoying it, like there's, I don't know. I mean, I don't see anything, at least in the practice parts I've been, otherwise it suggests that this is some team that doesn't like each other. And now I'm sure there's some frustration with how the season's going, but the idea they don't like each other, I have not seen that.
Couch on Fire next. Number 1, what an ugly few days of sports. Both basketball teams lose to Nebraska. Red Wings, Lions result, and Michigan beats Iowa on the road. Yikes. Wake me up when it's over. Two things may be true at the same time. Izzo may be past his prime and still may be our best option. Really pain for no big.
I think this is a really good point here. The idea that the two things can be true. And I'm not saying that Izzo is 68, 69. So he's past his prime in certain ways, for sure. To what degree, we're going to find out with the rest of this season, with what he's able to do in the next couple seasons, and we'll find out. But say he isn't quite the coach he was, I still would be I've seen way, way more time to cast Izzo aside. Izzo's done. Not fire Izzo, but get him out of town, time to move on, tweets that I've seen in a long time, probably not since the Syracuse game. And I'll say this. There's a lot at MSU. MSU benefits in so many ways from Izzo beyond basketball. And in basketball, still haven't missed a tournament. We'll see if they do this year. But also, when you talk about NIL collectives and cachet, what MSU has in terms of sort of a salary cap, so to speak, with the NIL collective and Ishbia and all these guys, I'm not sure that exists for the next guy. I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure the talent. Now, you can say, well, this team's not getting it done with all that, and that's a fair point. But there are a lot of things that may go south pretty quick after Tom Izzo, and I would be real careful about that. Now, if you'd like to just see something else and see where it goes, that's a fine opinion to have. But he has still created every expectation you have for this program.
Tyler, with just one here. Name one thing that isn't sinking. But, hey, Lions bounce back versus the Broncos.
I do think they win, Jason. I know you're worried.
There's a lot of people. Well, I've been way off on the Lions, especially gambling-wise, because I just have that, we're better than anybody mentality for some reason. I don't know. Nope. But, hey, if everybody starts jumping on the Lions bandwagon to beat the Broncos this Saturday, cool.
I made a really nice donation to the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app this week with the Miami Dolphins losing. They were 13-point favorite, something like that, and I had them in a couple teasers, and I had them like money line propping up a bunch of other favorite parlays that had won that just needed them to win. It was like, now I'll have to spite bet against them.
That's why you have to leave the NFL out of, if you're doing like multiple, like across sports, I would leave NFL out of it.
You know how I know we love football as a country? Because the NFL is stupid to gamble on, and yet we still do it because we love it so much.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the dumbest thing to gamble on. You might as well just go up to a roulette table and just do red or black,
They can do no wrong, the NFL.
Yeah.
Aledo next. Number 1, Jason and Graham versus Marty and Tum Tum in a pickup game, 1st to 15. 15? Give me Jason and Graham. Marty just isn't it. 2, Jonathan Smith and Joe Rossi, both 44. It's hard not to be excited. Rossi resume of development of players all the way to the NFL level is impressive.
If we played to 7, you and me versus Marty and Tum Tum, and you rebounded effectively, I would pick us.
How about first bucket wins and we get the ball first?
No, we don't need that. We're good.
Why? That's the only way we could win this. Bullshit. There's no way we could score 7 points on them.
The real key is, but they couldn't score 7 on us. If we're talking half court basketball here, where you have to, where you and I can stand between them and the rim. We're gonna hang in there. We're gonna hang in
there. Jonathan B. next. Number 1. It's now painfully obvious how much this MSU team misses Joey Hauser, making almost half of his threes stretch defenses and took pressure off the other shooters who are too much in their own heads right now. And 2, it's fun listening to Graham nerd out about his journalistic process.
Yeah, you enjoy it as much as everybody else.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
What's he talking about? Your journalistic process? Sure.
Yeah, they do miss Hauser. They miss Hauser for a lot of reasons.
What's Joey Hauser's take, though? He has to be sitting back going, yeah.
What's weird is
told you guys.
Even before he had the big senior year, when he had no confidence, he was struggling as his first senior year, I guess. I remember writing a column at Northwestern, like January 2nd of his second to last year, and they had won at Northwestern, and I went through the plus minuses with him, and he had an okay game, but they were just so much better with him on the floor, and it was one of those things where you start to then go and you start to realize, okay, even when he's not doing a lot of things, and he was a really frustrating player for a lot of fans for a long time, rightfully so, right? Because he would lose confidence. It really wasn't until the end of that year and then all of the next year that he kind of became a different guy there. But he still did things cerebrally in the game that made his teammates better. And they miss that quite a bit right now, I think for sure. By the way, if I ever told you the story about when the Young Guns, my Macker team, won our first game by doing exactly what we would do
only against 185 times
against Tum Tum and Matty Sissoko. Okay, I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Nestle's Quick Hotel next. Number 1, I'll trade the tourney streak for the Lions winning the division and 1 playoff game. 2, we need to start betting heavy against the Pistons. It's the only way it'll help. And 3, free parking, Verve Pipe, Olive Burgers, barbecue joints that double as cell phone stores. Lansing wins, baby.
Hell yeah. I'm telling you. When you can get good barbecue and a cell phone in the same spot, and sometimes still a pager.
Yeah. You can walk out a new person.
Yeah. No, it's 100% right on
wardrobe, get a 517 hat.
Okay, so
Lansing shirt.
I like these, though. Nestle's Quick Hotel would trade the tourney streak for the Lions winning the division and one playoff game. And I think different people, where you are in your Lions fandom versus MSU fandom, this speaks. If you were kind of equal on both, though, do you think most people would go for that?
Yes, because the Lions winning the division and one playoff game builds momentum. This MSU team, if they make the tournament, I don't see them getting deep. I know, obviously Izzo can do things in March, but I just don't.
Right.
Obviously, I would pick the Lions.
And people can say it's a 27-year thing or whatever for the MSU to do breaking, but it's like a 30-year thing with the Lions. So it's not like it's
it's still a cool streak, though. I guess.
It is,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Like when I hear about the tourney streak ending, I kind of get sad.
No, it's because it means your floor is really high. There's a level of consistency that separates MSU.
But it doesn't seem to be fun because then we get expectations that are this high, and then we get all excited, and then
right. And if you're
4 and 5,
and if you're constantly just getting in and you're just your floor, then it's not as fun as well. I love the Verve Pipe reference. Yeah, that's who else has the has the Verve Pipe? I do want to also admit something embarrassing about the Pistons and betting against them. I have now in the last week twice lost money betting on the Pistons.
Wow!
And once made money and they covered the spread just barely. But yeah, I was watching a game and I was like, they're going to win this. I talked myself into it. This is why I shouldn't ever bet. I'm like, they're going to win this game. And they lost by
Actually, Graham, this
17.
is not a show. This is an intervention. Graham's family, please come out.
Yeah.
Yep. Mom, you can go first. 1-800-GAMBLER. We have the number in his phone. What are you betting on the Pistons? Are you crazy?
I don't know why.
You're not even betting against them? You think they're going to win?
It was dumb. It was a really weak moment. I was humiliated, but I should not. We'll fix that in post. I don't want this out there.
Thank you for sharing, Graham. Patrick Russell next. Number 1, no bowl, no NCAA tournament, just off-season football moves to watch. Woof. 2, Patrick Mahomes is a whiny, entitled brat, and now the whole world sees it. 3, Lansing is a sad little city, but damn it, it's my sad little city, and we make the most of it. Detroit suburbia can kiss my ass.
Appreciate you, Patrick.
I was shocked by Mahomes' reaction, and Andy Reid.
I think
Andy Reid with his post-game presser, I don't know if they fined him yet, but coming at the NFL like that.
Yeah, it was a little weird, and I think Mahomes is built up enough to be able to get away with it a little bit. But
he should have been mad at Kadarius Toney, though.
Yes, and I think he was upset because I think it was all just sort of getting to him. The previous week, they didn't get that call, like at the end of the game with the pass interference. That probably cost him that game. So I think it was just all he doesn't have the weapons he'd like to have. I think he's just frustrated.
Patrick Mahomes seems like a really nice, genuine guy. Yep. I think you can give a pass to those guys here and there, right?
Totally, 100%.
Some dude next. Number 1, Grandmalito. Way to tell that lady what's up. As a Metro Detroiter, but not a Detroiter, I can say I'd be shocked if she lived in the city. So our capital should be in Northville. Trying like hell to get back to the Lansing area in a few years. And 2, the Lions defense is that bad. This Lions defense is that bad. It's the turnovers, including turnovers on downs, that are killing us. Cut that shit in half, and at least one of those recent losses is a win, perhaps both. And 3, trying to root cause the basketball problems. Coming up with recruiting misses, Rocket Watts, Lawyer, Kithier, and the guys still here like Hogarth, Sissoko, and maybe Akins just haven't really developed like we needed them to.
Yeah, no, I mean, it comes down to recruiting in this sort of era in a way, right? I mean, that's what this is. It's this group, and in some ways, even though some of the guys like, the freshmen now will be part of this group to a degree, I don't believe their era started. This is sort of the end of Malik Hall, Hogarth, Walker, and they'll have to decide, and see what they can make the most of it. And again, I do want to see them with Jackson Kohler. I'm also well aware that he averaged 3 points a game last year as a freshman, and that's a lot to say is really going to change a season. But I do think he's a different type of player, and the biggest problem with Sissoko is not his numbers. It's It's how he affects everybody else. And Kohler doesn't have that effect in a negative way, and I think that's a big deal.
Bart Vanderveld next. Can we get a groundswell for succession plan on the Hoops team? We need Drew Valentine from Loyola on this squad to help and take over eventually.
Give me some Hoff for a second. I got to see what Loyola's basketball record is here.
I don't think it's good.
Peacock.
Free Ubers.
Car. Cockburn.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to let you go for a while because I enjoy that so much.
You've had too many donuts, mate.
Oops, wrong. Sorry. That was the wrong one. All right. What's the record?
They're 6-4. And they played a decent schedule. They played Florida Atlantic.
That's the game.
Lost by 13 there. They also played number 8 Creighton. Lost by 23, but Nebraska lost by 29. And they've so I think they're solid. They just beat Boston College, but Boston College isn't usually that good. Yeah, they beat Harvard by 20. Anyway, I think they're better. They'll be fine. We'll see how they are in their A10. They really struggled a year ago. He's away from proving it there, but he is a young coach with ties that I think is a smart guy and a good coach. And if he figures out how to do it at Loyola, he'll be somebody to take a look at on the timeline. But he's going to have to do it there before he's really considered seriously.
David Jackson next. Number 1, Malik Carr gave MSU exactly one good game in 3 years. Get the fuck out of here, and I'll help him pack. 2, Nebraska went to the portal and found a goober post player no one have heard of who kicked Mahdi and Cooper's ass. But Izzo wanted to keep everyone happy, so we ran it back with the same guys. 3, this extended time without Larkin and Perron may cost Detroit a playoff berth. Someone has to get, what was this dude's name? Matthew Joseph. After all, we now know a cross-check to the back of the head is only worth 2 minutes.
There's the hockey take, the Red Wings take of the day that I don't think either one of us has a clue what's going on there. They did win kind of a wild game last night. Caught a little, I think it was last night. Nights are all running together at this point. Couple things with Malik Carr. I like Malik Carr as the person. Like I think a lot of people think Malik Carr is not a good dude. I think Malik Carr is a really good dude, and I hope he figures it out. There's certain things that I don't think he has as an athlete in terms of like. Doesn't seem to be the most driven, disciplined guy all the time, but he's got a load of talent, and he's a good guy, and so I hope he finds a place where he ought to go, where Iowa's got like 10 tight ends in the NFL. Malik Carr to go to Iowa. Like, they will make you an NFL tight end at Iowa. That is the.
So what did you like about Malik Carr? Because I know that just if a guy talks to you, he's a good guy.
No, I've had I just had a couple conversations with him.
He didn't look through you.
Correct. He did not look through me.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, a better guy than Jim Harbaugh or Jim Delaney. So, the Gyms.
Harbaugh looks through everybody. He's got those no one's driving eyes.
Yeah, well, that may not be something he was born with. But that's a whole.
You can be born with nobody's driving eyes?
Sure.
I
thought
your brain has to start that. So.
No, the portal comment, though, again, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I do think you can see it in Izzo right now, and you could see it at the if Izzo thought last May that his center position would look like it did at Nebraska, I don't think he's so stubborn that he wouldn't have gone and gotten somebody. He didn't see that coming. And you can say that's on him and his staff, but it wasn't like he took the Nebraska evaluation from Sunday, thought of it last May and said, yeah, screw that anyway. No, I mean, I think he looked like a guy who was really disappointed in what he saw and where things are at that position.
Andrew Gauthier next. Number 1, people clowning cities they've clearly not spent any time in is an absurd waste of editorial resources. 2, I'm tired of hearing PFF stats. Hutch needs to get home more. And 3, Hendon Hooker might need to be ready to go by next year, or Holmes needs to burn a lot of money on that offensive line.
I'm okay, keeping building the offensive line, but they're going to have to spend I think a lot of their draft capital on defense still. Although, again, if you draft a defensive back, you will be hurt. So don't play him until week 10. That's my whole shtick with that, playing the actual hits. Where are you on Aiden Hutchinson? Like,
it's not just his fault. I understand that he gets a lot of pressures and hasn't gotten to the quarterback as much, but I just can't put a blame on one guy. If you got to have a little help in order to free up on the outside edge there. So, I mean, he's not going anywhere.
Right.
He's under contract, all that stuff. So might as well. I mean, I think he can be a beast at times, but I will say I can understand why there's trepidation because he kind of looks sometimes like he isn't any good.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
I did like his accountability for his mistake last week, at least.
Well, yeah, he's a good kid. He comes from a great family. It's just he needs some help on the defensive line.
Yeah, for sure.
Gavin Haas next, number 1. Getting rid of guys like Malik Carr and Charles Brantley to the portal are positives for the MSU program moving forward. Both had lots of issues when it came to who they were as players during their time at Michigan State, and lots of drama is leaving with those two. 2, couch tweeting, betting the over on ASU minutes after Sam Levitt committed to is odd, seeing that he'll be sitting behind Jaden Rashada for the foreseeable future. Couch going full anti-blue wall to defend Lansing earned him a point, but his Levitt slobbering neutralized it.
Thank you, Gavin.
Back to 0-0. 3, Michigan State basketball and the Detroit Lions are both unserious teams, with one needing to be humbled and one needing to make some tough decisions about their future at the coaching position. While it still feels too early to start the conversation, Nate Oates over anyone.
So Nate Oates used to be somebody that I thought would be a great fit. But then last year happened.
Then the Brandon Miller thing.
Yeah. Like, I don't – if Nate Oates is the guy you'd like to see in Michigan State, what you need to happen is Tom Izzo to coach like 4 more years, Nate Oates to have different type of successes there, some good kids, get over that. So that's not his reputation right now, because right now that doesn't work. I think Nate Oates is a good guy. I think he handled that horribly. And I'm not just saying that because he texts me back whenever I text him. Because when he coached Buffalo, I was putting them up high on my AP poll, and he loved that. So he's like I actually think I don't know now because of what happened last year, but
it's not like we're going to ask any questions about it, right?
Well,
he comes on.
That's true. We could probably get him on this show. I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm just saying, like, he is that kind of
So you guys can talk about, you can 69 about Buffalo?
Yeah, that's what we would do the whole time. So I think he's a heck of a coach. I just think that right now that's not something that an athletic director would be able to sell.
It just needs to be in the rear view mirror a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And with Michigan State, a university that's not handled things, I don't know. Kermit the Spartan, number 1, I enjoyed watching Nancy get dunked on. I hope she responds. She brought out the best version of Graham. 2, Izzo fumbling this hard and for this long at the center position is truly bizarre. This seems like fertile ground for a deep dive column. 3, please resurrect Couch on fire and just write passionately. Slightly pissed off about some topic.
Yeah, start ranting.
That's what this show's for, though.
Yeah, really.
You want it verbally, or you want it like?
Yeah,
You could do a Couch on fire segment. I mean, if you want.
Yeah, I did get rid of some things in the LSJ that I used to do because we do this show. That I don't need to do I used to do a fake mailbag sort of thing. That was fun for a while. I remember
I made it one year. You made up my name.
Yeah,
like, man, look at that.
And that was still early in this show, but I wouldn't do a real mailbag because we do Twitter questions here. Like I wouldn't do, things like that. But
don't tell your boss that.
They're aware.
Oh.
They're cool. It's not like I'm taking days off or anything like that. I admit the old Couch on Fire blog was fun. It was actually my bosses. They loved the name of it. I would get myself in trouble if I just wrote passionately and slightly pissed off about random topics though every couple days. But I appreciate you.
Thomas Zambiasi next, number 1. Men's college hoops hasn't been great as a sport since before COVID. 2, MSU hockey wins a share of the Big Ten. And 3, the mere presence of places like Jose's, Soup Spoon, Dimitri's, Jersey Giant, and Meat Barbecue, to name a few, make Lansing one of the more delightful places I've lived.
It's an underrated food spot, Lansing. It really is. And taking a food shot.
43 and Cask and Company are good too.
Midtown Brewing Company, you name it. I mean, we got it here. It's I
can't believe you didn't change those.
Change those. Change somebody's Yeah, no, I actually probably should have. No, lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, give me 1 second. I'm gonna look up something real quick.
I got you covered.
From Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart.
I love when he hits his chest.
Time we stand and say, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know.
I found it. It's not. I mean, I do love Chad. It's just not the same as.
Hey, the show's going on 2 hours or something. I'm going to play lats to get you going.
Absolutely. Okay.
Sorry.
No, the Michigan State hockey point, though, is, I mean, right now they're in first place. They're going to be in first place through Christmas. I mean, think about where that program has been. In conference play, in a hell of a conference this year that is just loaded top to bottom, they are 7 wins, 1 loss, 2 ties in first place, 25 points. I mean, that's a 12-4-2 overall. Really, the kind of the tough weekend to Boston College is probably the kind of the humbling moment of the season. But they have arrived just, I mean, it's almost like a flashback to the 90s when the school needs hockey to prop up its self-esteem because football and basketball aren't doing it. Hockey is there for you.
Ryan Schultz, next, number 1. If State loses to Baylor and Oakland, Haller should be shopping for his next gold watch. 2, saying Aikens had an encouraging night is some of Graham's wildest spin I've ever read, but the guy is a pro. 3, I know you save $5 at Qdoba if you go on Wednesday, but it's worth going any other night of the week just to avoid waiting in line. Lines are like college refs.
Yeah, to save a couple bucks is not worth
$5. Yeah. How long's the line?
I don't like lines.
I don't either. I would gladly pay $5 to go in front of everybody.
Yes.
If it were an option. So I would go on another day.
And I'm not, look, there are lots of people who, if you've got a family of whatever.
Here we go.
I'm not.
I have to preface it with a shit. We get it.
Yes.
People need to save a dime and all that.
Yeah. Right. 100%.
Still paying $5.
Yeah. And I know, like, I thought it was an encouraging night on certain facets for Jaden Aikens, but I appreciate you, Ryan.
You almost said it with a straight face. You hear that? G.E. Miller next. Number 1, I'm not in the fire Izzo camp, but the streak will break this year. We're 31-31 in the last 62 Big Ten games. He's 68, needs a complete roster reset with tougher guys, and things are stale with coaching and assistants. It might be the best for everyone if he walks after this year. 2, if Izzo wants to turn things around, he's going to have to overhaul the roster with 3 to 4 guys in the portal and add some young, hungry, talented assistants to his staff. Every year, MSU stays out of the portal while other top 25 programs boost their roster. We are falling behind. And 3, Tyson Walker, our only transfer, is the only true dog on this team. It seems like everyone else is just going through the motions. This program used to be known for its toughness, but it's got extremely soft. Talent evaluation is lacking.
And obviously there's some guys that didn't develop. And some of these, I mean, there are a lot of 4 stars. Again, a lot of people evaluated these guys in certain ways. I just think I don't think it's the talent as much as it is some of the fit right now. And I also don't think you need a complete roster overhaul. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, Jeremy Fears Jr. is the type of guy you want leading your team. Watch him lead people. Now, he's in a tough spot because he's the freshman and there's a senior at his position. And so it's not something he can – but watch his conversations with Izzo. Watch how he interacts with guys. Watch how he goes at guys, the toughness, tries to dunk over people. Watch how he talks to Xavier Booker. Like, that is the type of guy you want leading your program. And if Izzo walks away, you're probably losing Fears. I would be, I understand. I get the frustration, but I thought this year would be a lot better than it has been. And as I look at it now, based on how it, again, I want to see the Kohler thing and all that, but I think there are some problems they're not going to be able to overcome. Doesn't mean they can't beat anybody on a given day, but they're not going to put together, I don't think, game after game after game, the way you need to really get somewhere. And I still think there's a lot on this roster, especially the younger part of the roster, guys coming in that you don't want to mess with.
Cinemod next, number 1. Glad I won the hypothetical gift card last episode. That made me some type of way. And 2, I can't handle any more heartbreak this season. Tell me it's going to get better.
I don't think it gets worse. That's all I can say. I don't. Yeah, I don't think it gets worse. Yeah, if that's.
But it wouldn't surprise me.
And then I would just hang out out at Munn Ice Arena otherwise, because I think that's the place to feel good about things. We are going to take a really quick break. We get back. We'll get into more of your hot takes. Couch in the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels.
Firekeeper's Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play from your phone, tablet, or laptop. Get in on all the football action with pre- and in-game wagering. There's showdowns every week in football that you can't miss. Plus, the college and pro hoops are red hot, and the pucks are cool. Get your first casino deposit and sports wager matched up to $500 each. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen, Bar, or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with one awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at GoMuskox.com, where Couch in the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF.
Christmas is almost here, and jewelry is for sure on your list. But where will you go for that very special gift? I'm Katrine Medawar, and we at Medawar Jewelers' 4 locations in Lansing, Okemos, Jackson, and Portage have filled our stores with gorgeous pieces of jewelry just in time for the holiday season. Diamond rings, diamond necklaces, bracelets, earrings, watches. We have a huge selection of the latest designs of engagement rings. And if you want your ring custom designed, then we do it all in-house, exquisitely created by our master jeweler. If a lab-created diamond is on your mind, then come in today and we'll show you the largest selection of the highest quality lab diamonds in mid-Michigan. So, what to buy this Christmas? Come to Medawar Jewelers. We have you covered.
Matterward Jewelers.
Find Couch in the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, our Wednesday hot take show presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. We're doing a lot of shitting on Detroit right now, but I'm telling you, the best thing Detroit has going for it, it does not have the state capital, but it is the headquarters of Muskox Flannels. And you can have a Muskox flannel for Christmas or get one for the loved ones in your life. A fantastic gift. The softness, the quality, the durability. They'll know you care about them with a Muskox flannel. Go to GoMuskox.com. And again, you can use the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, for $15 off your Muskox flannel. And if you order by December 15th, it is free shipping in time for Christmas. All right, back to your hot takes.
Munfield Keg next. I see Jaden Akins hitting the portal next year, and it might benefit both parties if he does. MSU will have Fears, Holloman, Richardson, and Tang at the guard positions, and Carr and Norman at the 3. I don't know if MSU will be the right fit for him next year with his eyes on the NBA.
See, here would be my counterpoint back. This is, you know, what I'm not just saying you. I'm saying everybody tends to do when you're talking about young guys. Richardson and Tang will be at the guard position, 2 true freshmen, and we see what that looks like, right? When guys are actually how ready they are. Norman's not even playing this year. And while I think all of those guys will be good players and impact to varying degrees, to have a senior like Akins who's finally it's more his turn to be the guy, and I think that's part of Akins' problem is that not enough of everything runs through him. Now, he may not be capable of that, but I think a year without Tyson Walker and a year without A.J. Hoggard in some ways would be good for Akins at the end of his career and would give him hope of you don't want a senior Jaden Akins not being on that roster. I don't think it's now he may decide he wants to go somewhere else for a senior year, but I also think it could be a really good year for him.
Dave Lakin next. Number 1, Jaden Akins needs to become a consistent scorer for MSU to be a contender. 2, Madi Sissoko needs to be assigned to the cleanup crew while Carr and Booker get more minutes. 3, I like Jonathan Smith's decision to outside the MSU bloodlines to pick his defensive coordinator, but keep Hawkins.
Yeah, I mean, he's done the logical thing so far. And that, keeping the assistants that made sense, a couple of them, and going after, some of his staff. It looks like a good mix of the guys he's trusted that he's built a program with and other guys with more Midwest ties. Rossi's a Pittsburgh guy originally, and obviously he's recruited in Michigan and been in Minnesota for quite a while. And the one thing I want to bring up about Cohen Carr, too, is there's a guy, like when you're looking for reasons for hope on a team, you need reasons that a team can become something different than what it is. And so you need guys to become something a little different than they are. And one of the big reasons, I think, is obviously Jackson Kohler's return. I think Cohen Carr, though, the last 2 games, we've seen elements in his game that give you hope that he's becoming more than he's shown. And one of them is the willingness to take that 15-foot jumper, which he's got to take every time he's open with it because he needs people to guard him out there. But for the first time, we saw him, on the dribble drive, pull up 15-foot jumper. And that was brand new, and I think that's really important. I think, the more he can do that, the more you can use him. The more he figures it out defensively, you just look at who he is as an athlete. It's tremendous. So once he's a guy who is he figures things out more in their defensive system and becomes a little bit more of a multiple threat offensively besides just being kind of a garbage guy around the rim. All of a sudden, he becomes easier to play, and his impact can be greater, and that could help change them and allow them to play different types of small ball as well.
Miller next. Number 1, AJ's yelling and sulking after plays always overshadows any good stats he may get. It's the kind of thing that sucks the fight out of teams. 2, this Hoops team needs a Harlan Barnett pep talk so bad. You got a free-falling football team to play their hearts out every single week. And 3, multiple veterans apparently forgetting the shot clock exists broke me more than anything else this year has.
I think AJ's done all right. I mean, AJ's body language is not. I mean, that's one of the things he's got to work on. We talked about this is the Jim Caldwell. We
never knew what Caldwell was thinking. He had the same look.
Yeah, but he had that kind of, I'm confused, like even when he wasn't, there's got to be consultants, body language and mouth. Like Harbaugh's got that problem where he's like got his hands on his knees and he's got his mouth wide freaking open. And when he's winning now, nobody minds it. But when they weren't winning,
he's got a stupid looking face.
It was frustrating for people. And that's just a resting face situation. That's who you are. And there should be consultants for that sort of thing, including for AJ.
Sports Guy 1919 next. Number 1, a realistic best situation for the Lions at this point is to win the division by week 18 and rest starters in the final week before hosting the playoff game. 2, ESPN sports presentations are awful sometimes, with the double box example on Monday Night Football, having one game take up a quarter of the screen.
So, I think he's right on the Lions. I mean, ideally you would have a week to rest and prep right at this point because you're not going to get a bye. That's kind of out the window for a minute. When you look at how the Eagles have suffered and only having 3 losses and the way the schedule was, you're like they could be in contention. I guess if they beat the Cowboys, they still could. But the way they're playing now, it's not going to happen. What you're really hoping for the Lions is to get a home playoff game to win the division and to get into that divisional round and take a swing and play well. The best way to do that is, I think, is to have almost a bye by winning it early. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want. Yeah. I mean that's where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
time to rest is always key.
The other thing is, and I know he just came back, would Hendon Hooker be physically ready to play the final week of the season? I would watch that game. I'll just say that.
No one knows what's up with Hendon Hooker or what he looks like, right? Gerald B17, number 1, we will still win the Big Ten outright. 2, the MSU bet should be Graham has to have lunch with Lats if we miss the tournament. Yeah. 3, Levitt going to Arizona State proves he isn't what Graham thinks. That is a nobody program, and he wasted his transfer to go be forgotten.
Maybe, but I think it also proves that coaches are stupid. Like, I told the Nebraska guys when McCord from Ohio State's is the guy they're looking at in Nebraska, and there's other guys that whatever. They may regret that. I think Matt Rule made a mistake, and I am maybe overhyping Sam Levitt based on a few things, but one thing I have done decently in my life is when I see a blue chipper, I can evaluate it. Now, that said, I've also said some things about quarterbacks that have been wrong over time, but I don't know. I'm big on that. On number 2, the MSU bet, I will absolutely have lunch with Chad Latz if MSU misses the tournament.
Yes.
That seems like a fair bet.
And he can sing this song live for you.
And I won't forget the men who died.
I don't think you know what you're getting yourself into, though. Balake next. Hi, Graham and Jason. I've been a listener since April of 2022. Love the show. Number 1, thank you, Jason, for telling me about Equalizer 3 on the show a few months ago. I'm an empty nester, married for 30 years, and it's just the 2 of us. Thank the Lord, baby Jesus, she loves comedies. However, she does not like movies with violence. Tonight, she did a girls' night out in Grand Rapids, watched Equalizer 3. Awesome. Completely underrated. Agree. 2, last week a listener asked Graham how he can put up with all of the teasing. Graham, I have been thinking about your response for a few weeks now. You said, and I paraphrase, in your core, you have to believe you are not better than other people. Beyond guy humor, inside access to all things MSU sports, this is the special sauce to your show. Both of you are consistently self-deprecating.
Appreciate Balake. He actually wrote us a really nice email.
Yeah, thanks, man.
That was very complimentary and sort of relatable on the.
Could you imagine if we weren't self-deprecating, though? The show would be complete ass.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine that?
A couple arrogant fucks up here. And another thing I'm good at.
Do it.
Yeah.
Even if I wanted to. Even for a bit. Are we done with him?
Yes.
Okay. Nate C., number 1, since 99, who would you rather be? MSU basketball or UConn? 2, college players are getting paid. It's acceptable to say they are soft and playing like ass. And 3, the only thing Izzo is doing wrong is going light on these players. Give them hell. The ones that stay, play. I don't know if that'd work in today's college basketball landscape, Nate.
Well, I do think you, like if I were running practice this week, I would create a point system and based on certain things with rebounds and toughness and all those sort of things, and that would be my starting lineup. It would be purely based on who won practice based on these toughness things against Baylor. And I know that sounds risky because you got to get a win at some point, but you're not winning these games right now. And Baylor is a great opportunity. I think it is a game that can change the vibes because they're a good team. And they come in rapid succession, too. They play twice next week. And Oakland's not a bad team. You got to turn around 2 days later and make sure you play okay. But, yeah, I wouldn't do the football pad stuff, but I would create a point system in practice that rewarded and told me who really wanted to start. And then I wouldn't care anything about who you were as a player. I would just start those 5 guys and sort of send that message.
Professor next. Number 1, ban scheduling MSU hoops and Lions on the same day. It's too risky that they will both lose and nuke the weekend. 2, the worst thing in sports fandom is high preseason expectations. Bonus. Nobody should want a white Christmas. Why pass up a good travel conditions for a World War II Christmas song? Well, not like a lot of white.
You just want a dusting. You want a little bit of
a dander.
Yes. You want that night before where you just, oh, look how pretty it is outside. And then it's a little bit. And nobody's traveling. You don't have to. On Christmas, if you're already where you're going to be, you don't have to shovel your sidewalk. There's no mail. So you need it just to maybe melt by the next day a little bit.
If you want your mail. Chris Eastlick next. Number 1, now that Graham has seen the blue wall, the Couch and the Rube family has achieved their goal, and this will be the last episode. Sweet. 2, ESPN should probably rein Desmond Howard in a bit from openly bashing his colleagues who were critical of Michigan's sign stealing. And 3, Izzo used to be one of the best in the game out of timeouts. Now I'm not even confident we get a shot off or don't turn it over.
The Desmond Howard's been a bit, but that's who Howard is, and they
just don't pay attention to him.
Yeah, I think you have to, and I do get why it's frustrating for people because he is a true Michigan voice and he's got a big platform, and
yeah, but he's been doing that for years.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Jay Riemann Schneider next. Number 1, if punches weren't thrown, I don't think it's a big deal. Pretty sure all staffs have arguments, but as time goes on, like with Mel Tucker, Juwan Howard too was gonna prove to be not the guy. And I believe, for whatever reasons, Michigan will have a new basketball and football coach by next season. 2, lots of talk about Izzo maybe being done when comparing him to what blue blood teams are doing. But Indiana, Duke, UCLA, Kentucky, Louisville, North Carolina are all more blue blood than MSU, and all have had recent failings. The only one that seems to be immune is Kansas. And 3, a month ago, who in their right mind would have thought MSU football would be the only solace of hope for Spartan football and basketball fans by mid-December?
It's hockey around here all the time, Jay. Hockey all the time. You make a good point, though. I do think people tend to, because they're not living in the worlds of the other or teams that are blue bloods, they don't realize that a lot of programs have gone through it. And Carolina certainly has, but Louisville's going through it right now. Kentucky fans don't want Calipari. UCLA's been up and down for a long time. Duke's been pretty consistent. Sans a couple years, in Indiana, obviously. So there's no doubt it could be worse. The Juwan Howard thing, I don't know where this is in terms of actual reporting, what was actually done in terms of him having a spat with his trainer, strength and conditioning guy or whatever it was. I tend to agree, though, that I don't think Juwan, like if you had a prop bet right now, this would be a good one for Firekeepers. The odds that Juwan Howard and Jim Harbaugh are both not back next year, what would you put those odds at?
4-1.
I would take that, though. Like that's to me,
I thought
value.
that was. I know.
Maybe 2-1. Nah, that's too low.
Probably. Yeah, not very high plus money on it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I would probably.
Juwan's pretty much gone. It's just basically Harbaugh. Is he going to go to the Bears or another team?
Right.
Yeah. Alex Baker. Number 1, likely Lions playoff opponents in order of preference for a round 1 win. Vikings, Seattle, Green Bay, Rams. 2, the old CCHA is greater than the new Big Ten. And 3, the GLI is one of the most underrated events on the Michigan sports calendar. Bonus. Nanooks hockey will win it.
I'm thinking about going this year. I don't know for sure. It's never a perfect time for me, but it's supposed to be sweet in Grand Rapids too. I'm not trying to shit on Detroit here. I'm just like, but I would like to go one of these years. Let's go to the number 1 here though. Vikings, Seattle, Green Bay, Rams. Who would be your ideal? Would you like to be out of division?
I
don't want to play.
I don't
Stafford.
know which team I don't really want to see Green Bay. Although fuck Green Bay, but whatever.
I think Vikings is it for me. I think he's right on that.
Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah.
And Seattle.
Who are they starting at quarterback?
That's a good question. And Seattle's struggling right now, but they still make me nervous. The problem with the Lions is every team right now should make you nervous about the Lions. The Vikings are probably the best.
Can't get any pass rush.
Right. Yeah.
Matt Venny. Number 1, everybody who had the under in the Army-Navy game and watched the Army QB take a safety at the end of regulation immediately converted to communism. 2, the college football playoff ruined college football before the transfer portal and NIL did. Not saying FSU doesn't have a gripe, but now going 13-0 and winning your conference isn't good enough anymore. If somebody told me MSU would go 13-0 and win the Big Ten in a few years, my zipper would snap off. 3, as someone who moved from Southern California to the Detroit area, attended MSU, moved back to Detroit for 5 years, and moved back to Lansing the first chance I could, I can objectively say Lansing is superior to Detroit in every facet.
Winner. That's it right there. That is the appreciate you, Matt. Yeah, and I agree with you on the. Now it's good to know what happened with the Army-Navy ending there because I was a little unclear, and that does sound like an awful way to lose an over/under for sure.
Peasy, next, number one. As someone who's frequently in downtown Lansing for work, it's kind of underwhelming, but putting people down is never a good way to get point across. 2, Monty Williams is a war criminal. 3, I think it's worth burning Garrick Norman's red shirt to just get another shooter out there, even if he is just a decoy. If it doesn't work out, just fake an injury and get a medical red shirt.
It is true. I mean, and I don't know the exact rules. It used to be it was after a certain point. It's not just the number of games, but it's after a certain point of the season, which they're getting to. So I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, are you willing to fake an injury and those sort of things?
Bad karma.
I have not been a fan of Monty Williams in this start for the Pistons, obviously, for a lot of reasons. But they're tied to him, so it's hard to. Yeah, they're tied to him. And by the way, it is true that Lansing's downtown has its underwhelming moments, especially in the evening. But lots of cities have that. You ever been to London's business district after 5 p.m.? It's it's financial district. Like you have different neighborhoods. We have Rio Town. We have Old Town. We have you have different areas of the city that are vibrant and so it doesn't have to just be your downtown. But we do have some issues and we're working through them. But thank you, PC.
Clint Bainey, next, number one. Courtney Hawkins now secures our hunt for Metro Detroit recruiting. 2, surprised but not surprised by Smith not retaining Harlan Barnett.
Whoa.
And someone tell Harlan. 3, I'm a basketball winter sport guy, but I highly recommend going to an MSU hockey game. They attack the competition unlike our current football and basketball squads.
So the Harlan Barnett thing is news to me, and it may be something. And again, I have not reached out to Harlan this week. I will at some point here, and maybe should now. But
someone tell him. He's probably staring at his phone.
Yeah, I still think Barnett's going to wind up. I've not heard that Barnett is not winding up on that staff next year just because they haven't announced him. I think it has more to do with they just hired the defensive coordinator, see if there's a fit, see what the role will be. My guess is it has more to do with that than anything else. But that is I do like the Courtney Hawkins move coming back for sure.
Captain Spartan next. Remember when the Freep was obsessed with every detail of Mel's contract, down to the detail and who benefited? Weird they don't have the same energy to find out the truth about this LLC.
Well, all they did was file a FOIA and they got, pushed back on, and then they sued for it because MSU is a public institution, and they would do the same thing if that was if an LLC. It's not the same. It's not the same thing. Again, did you bring up the blue wall? This editorial that took shots at Lansing? I know it wasn't MSU directly, but I'm not going to fight your blue wall claims anymore. That was, Nancy came after my baby here. So you guys are protective of MSU, and I get it, and I'm protective of Lansing, and now we have this common enemy, and I'm with you.
TK next. How has no one in the media made the comparison with the Hogard Fears situation to that of Chris Hill and Drew Neitzel? Freshmen could potentially replace the previously celebrated senior point guard.
You get the second one? Oh, I didn't. Oh, you opened a different one. I'll read the second one. I sent you a second edition. But Max Christie made the right decision by leaving early. He has a legit role on an in-season tournament winning team with LeBron. Both of these are good, TK. Number one, the Hogard Fears thing, here's where it's different, the Chris Hill and Neitzel. Chris Hill was never actually a point guard. And he only ever played point guard originally because Michigan State didn't have one. They were in a spot where he had to play out of position. And so and he did lose his confidence late. And he was a shooter, though. He was a true shooter. So that's I think, the difference there. Max Christie, he didn't make a mistake by leaving because I think it's going to work out okay. I think, though, if he had come back, he would have had a really good year. I think the way he was a guy who was too much was asked of him that first year. I think he would have had a good sophomore year. I think he would have been a higher draft pick, and it might have been in a little different spot. So I'm not saying he made a bad decision, but he would not have made the wrong decision, I don't think, by coming back either.
Matt C. next. Number one, Graham, finally glad you came around and admitted the Detroit media is his useless bunch of grifters. Seriously, move the capital to Detroit. Detroit is a complete dump run by incompetent, corrupt local government. No thanks. 2, is anyone in the MSU media going to write a tough column on this program struggles since Cassius left. 500 in Big Ten play, and now Matt Painter is the best coach in the Big Ten, for God's sakes. Someone please hold Izzo accountable for this mess. 3, I also need a column on how you were wrong about Izzo not using the portal. It's clear this strategy doesn't work in today's game. Madi never developed, and he recruited the worst 5-star big in the history of basketball.
I don't think, there have been lots of guys who are supposed to be great who are stiffs. I still think you recruit Xavier Booker. I still think he'll be a good player at Michigan State. I do. As I talked about at the beginning of the show, I think the big man position is a position that you have to have now, and there's really no excuse not to have because of how much more prevalent it is in college basketball, because of how the NBA views it and their lack of need and desire for a lot of these guys. And so you're right. In the future, he's got to be better with that. We'll see what they are with Kohler, and that could change things. In terms of holding Izzo accountable for this mess, what would you like the column, give me the lead of that column. I've written some pretty critical columns that he's lost his I've also written some columns late in seasons that haven't panned out. The thing about college basketball is it's not a short season. It's not a season where things don't evolve. And I do want to see it with Jackson Kohler. I do want to see where this team gets to. There will be a time to write a column that says, boy, there's some things that this particular group, it didn't work. But I also look at the youth on the roster and the guys coming in, and I say it's not like this was a this year or no year. It's not like there's not promising players still happening or promising prospects still in the program or pipeline. I do appreciate where you're at with it, and I'm not somebody who's looking to dodge Izzo's accountability on this.
Jarrett next. Number 1, the lack of good walk-ons on the MSU basketball team has hurt the development of the players. 2, Michigan has a better team than MSU currently in men's basketball. And 3, Michigan State hockey loses both games in the GLI.
GLI's got good teams. Could happen. The first shot fired at Steven Izzo and Nick Sanders, though. So those guys. Here's where I disagree with the idea that the walk-ons matter for this team. The one thing this team does have is depth. Now, whether they have the right 5, who knows? But they are able to play 5-on-5 at a pretty high level with pretty good players, more than a lot of teams. They've had years where they couldn't do that or didn't have the guys to practice. So I don't think the walk-ons matter as much.
The way I feel right now, Nick and Steven are options.
Richard Kane next. Absent an attitude overhaul, the only hope for this MSU team to continue the streak is if Tyson Walker goes all Scott Skiles circa 1986. Otherwise, this team's footprints in the sand lead straight to no postseason. That's right, a sub-500 record and not even the NIT.
Oy. Yeah, they haven't played the star system in a long time. They do some stuff with Walker to get him shots, but the star system, the last time they really played it was probably Drew Neitzel junior year. And they did, the system they probably used with more with Steve Smith and Respert and those guys. That's when you have one dude, that's sometimes what you do. I think they've got more talent than they had on some of those teams where they had to do that, though. It just, yeah. But that is a prediction. Sub-500 record, not even the NIT. If that were to happen, I would drive Chad Latz around for a day.
Okay. Deal.
All right.
BPA next. Number 1, you would never construct a Gus Macker team with all soft, streaky shooters and no low-post scorer, yet Izzo did just that. 2, if they expand the tourney to 128 this year, we'll be just fine. And 3, not one player on the roster has got even at least a bit better over the summer. Incredible.
They're not playing like it. I don't know if that's entirely fair or true, but you're right. It's not showing up on the court. And the one guy that I think people are most excited about, and I would say Trey Holloman probably has, and I think Jackson Kohler was somebody people were excited about, and we haven't seen him yet.
Shep, number 1, Graham, you need to accept the L on your Booker take. With what MSU is getting from Cooper and Sissoko, there's zero justifiable reason not to play Booker. What's the worst that could happen? We could start 0-2 in the Big Ten. 2, Lions are who we thought they were, a good but not great team that needs more pieces on D, whose window of winning big starts next year. And 3, Hutch is already the all-time NFL leader in almost getting a sack. as the number 2 overall pick. He should be trending on the Watt, Garrett, Crosby, Bosa level, and I'm not sure I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be one of those guys. And that's
I would like to see all the guys he mentioned on the Lions, though.
Yes.
Replacing Hutch, and they're by themselves. I don't know.
Yeah, no. So I do think there is something to number 2, and we talked about this earlier, that as frustrating as this isn't actually their window yet. But a lot of what happens...
It could have been.
Yeah, you're right.
Started.
And a lot of what happens with the Lions window is going to depend on quarterback. They're still playing the stopgap quarterback, and it looked like he was the future guy, and now it doesn't. Now he looks more like the reason. I mean, they got him. They wanted the picks. The picks they got were more about the picks than Jared Goff, and they took a shot with him. He was supposed to be the stopgap guy, and he's been, I think, better as a stopgap guy than they ever could have imagined. But right now, water seems to be finding its level a little bit.
DMB, number 1, I see better ball movement at the Portage YMCA than with this MSU team right now. 2, Izzo should have pink-slipped Hall, Motti, and Cooper and hit the portal. It's just not working out. Cooper in the NBA couch, LOL. 3, there are too many short, famous people's kids on the roster. Izzo's soup kitchen to Motti is one thing, but maybe just let rich college kids spectate like the rest of us.
It's a funny line.
Can we get Steven a bucket before he cut him or whatever you have to do?
You're not going to cut kids. I mean, one of the things Izzo is trying to do is he's trying to do it differently right now, and it may not work.
But the question is, are they taking up roster spots for guys that could help this team?
No.
Well, there you go.
No.
Mr. Benjen, number 1, Malik Hall at the 4, a bum, no fire, no rebounds, slowest release I've ever seen, air balls. Hall at the 5, fluid team offense, good ball movement. Guys don't stand around. Stay small, Tom. 2, Chris Ilitch, if you cannot afford a $700 million contract, sell the team.
I'm not sure Chris Ilitch would spend $7 million on Ohtani. You know,
does he know Ohtani signed with the Dodgers? Or
I don't know.
Someone tell him.
I don't know who knows Ohtani is. Yeah, that pretty sure.
God.
Yeah, it's not.
Mike's rolling over in his grave. Steve Beckman. Number 1, people that use numbers instead of names when criticizing players on social media are cowards. 2, Lansing should always have a healthy relationship with Detroit. And 3, the result of MSU Baylor depends more on how the assistant coaches manage subs than on how Izzo manages the game.
Yeah, and that's one thing that is important to remember is, I mean, Izzo is part of that, but the in-game stuff is not Izzo. He is not the subs guy. But I do feel there's sometimes not enough feel for that. Like I know this was the plan, but let's let this go for a minute because you really haven't found a 5 yet. And so when you're still trying to find a 5, try to find a 5, if that makes any sense.
6 baby AKA. Number 1, MSU is a hockey school. 2, in retrospect, the loss of Bunk Moreland will be the downfall of MSU hoops. And 3, you have 10 times the listeners if you just change the damn intro music to the Ballad of Chassie Lane. Chassie Lane? That was my favorite porn star in the 90s.
Really?
Chassie Lane. Google that.
Not going to do that on this computer. No. That's what I don't need is people to start giving me – because I wouldn't know who some of these people are. Not that I –
Please. Such a liar.
Because I didn't know the name.
It was funny. My roommate back in the day, he could name more male porn stars than female, and he didn't realize he was like bragging about it at a party. Like, dude.
Well, and we had VHS, back then, and but I didn't know who they were. I just knew the VHS. I didn't know them by name.
Bullshit. You didn't know Jenna Jameson?
Well, I knew Jenna Jameson.
There was no internet, dude. You knew names.
I knew some names.
You're such a liar.
I'm not denying my...
It's okay if you know porn star names, by the way.
I'm not denying that 15-year-old Graham didn't have some curiosity about porn stars.
We're not going to block you in the neighborhood Facebook group.
Yeah, I'm not...
It's okay to watch porn.
Did you have... I had the moment where... So I had a subscription to Playboy when I was... And I had a P.O. box in downtown Lansing. Yeah. See, pre-9/11, you could do that sort of thing. No
Masturbate?
What I mean is you could have... Like, I had a P.O. box with aliases. Like I had Graham, and then I had Todd Jacobson, and I had somebody else. That's how I got my Columbia House, BMG, all that stuff, and you could just disappear, and nobody knew who you were. And so I also had my Playboy subscription, and I had them in my, like every good teenager, in my sock drawer, stacked. And
it's convenient because you need the sock.
Came home once, my mom had cleaned my room, Socks were clean. Magazines were missing.
There's a couple socks standing straight up.
We never talked about it.
What's there to talk about?
There's just not. It's just a little awkward at dinner that night.
Believe me, when I ordered the block of porn, there wasn't very much talking with my dad. He just said, I saw the cable bill. And I knew that meant to not do it again. I'm caught. But it was a hell of a 24 hours.
These are stories worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing. A great place for trivia on Tuesdays, a date on the weekends, brunch on Sundays, and also a great place to have a gathering. Like they do a gathering, a work gathering, a function, a Christmas party. They do that really well, and they still have openings on Sunday. You can give them a call. Go to midtownbrewing.net or check them out on Facebook. Check out their menu and the whole vibe there. It's worth doing.
By the way, when these shows go over 2 hours, all we need to do is talk 90s porno. Like, I have my second win now.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Zeke's fan page next. Number 1, life is still enjoyable when your favorite sports teams lose. Barely. 2, people who complain, brag, should be put in a timeout or behind bars upstate. And 3, Rube still needs an episode to answer takes or questions while Couch reads them.
No, I agree. We need to do that because people will give different types of ones. Maybe that's the last one next week before
90s
Christmas.
porno stars.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I'm in.
I have no idea who they are. Bo McJunkins, number 1, take this 1930s Hickory Hoosier offense with 4 guys sitting at the top of the key and hire someone from this generation, Tom. This shit is Brad Salem and Dave Warner on the hardwood. Don't give a shit if we're recruiting well and don't use our players effectively. 2, enjoy this era because we don't know what's next, you say. Well, I'm about ready to take a fucking chance because we are 500 program lately with poor recruiting, and being happy with the streak is the standard now. Can't wait to lose to Purdue for the 12th time in a row. And 3, nothing tells me this team will get on the right track more than A.J. Hogard giving me a snarl and a flex after he makes a layup when we're down 15. This is who our year depends on. Sweet.
So let me tell you about poor recruiting. Let me tell you about Steve Polanowski and Damon Bethea. And I mean, these are guys who are good players in my youth, but like there was a different. I mean, this is pretty good recruiting overall. Now the question is whether it's development worked out or they're getting the right guys or it's fitting. There's lots of questions, but in terms of who they're getting based on their stars, it's still been pretty good. But I understand your frustration, and I don't. Any fan who's loyal to, and invest themselves in a team has the right to be frustrated and the right to think there should be something more and be something better. I just think, again, it's important to remember that the expectations and standard you have has only been created by one person at MSU, and that's the guy that you're looking to move on from. And at some point, you'll have to. As long as you have that perspective.
Dark Mantonio, number 1, maybe all those who said slow down on the MSU preseason hype were right. A 13-loss team that lost possibly its ceiling, full of upperclassmen that outside of one player had never really been consistent. Still no low post presence, and you can't realistically rely on freshmen. 2, going to be lots of hardcore college basketball fans pissed when they when they realize they can't watch what could possibly be a preview of the national title this Saturday.
That's 3. It's 3. No, it's 3.
3. Sorry. You always demean the Equalizer, which I just found out is a top 10. Oh, fuck. Top 10 TV show if you discount sports. So put some respect on Dana Elaine Owens' name. And I bet a dozen groovy donuts that you've seen Queen Latifah's Last Holiday numerous times.
I actually have, yeah, for sure. It's a good movie.
Finally, one person that actually admits to watching the shitty Equalizer. 55 million people can't be wrong.
So is it just Peacock that has Arizona Purdue this week? Is that why it's going to be
Peacock?
Yeah, no, that's going to.
That's Tony Dombrowski.
That's a good way to get some subscriptions. Yeah, for sure.
We're running out of batteries. Hans Jurgen, number 1, throughout his career at MSU, Jonathan Smith will continually outwit Graham Couch in pressers. 2, I crossed paths with Graham at Meyer over the weekend, and he said, quote, screw you and your family this holiday season. 3, our centers, they do nothing. In the immortal words of Princess Leia. Help me, Jackson Kohler. You're my only hope. Bonus, if you ever forget or run out of time for my hot takes and questions again, I'll vote for Trump. That's a threat.
Yeah. I was at Meyer, but I don't think I was there over the weekend. So, Hans, it was somebody else who told you to screw you and your family this holiday season. Very rude, though.
That looked like Graham. It sounded like him. Jake Hawkins, number 1, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. I like what you both have done and what potential lays ahead, but Dan, what were you thinking running plays on 4th and 10 or running a halfback delay on 4th and 1? And Brad, now you see why the Lions needed an extra edge rusher. 2, I'm completely speechless where this MSU basketball team is at now. This is not what we were promised and not what you want to see after a real shitty football season. 4 and 5, WTF, all caps. We could be 4 and 7 really soon. 3, I do agree that Andy Sipowicz endured a lot of shit on NYPD Blue, but he also went through a lot of personal growth and change. And to be fair, after Sylvia died, he was a good father, ended up with Connie McDowell and 2 other kids, and wound up as a sergeant of his detective squad.
A lot of bad stuff still happened to him. Yeah, but I appreciate Jake. I love that you know that much and remember the details that much because I tell you what.
It's the highlight. I think we need to move Jake up.
Yeah, it's so good. But
I think it's time.
I 2 a.m. I guess it was 3 a.m. Eastern time, 2 a.m. Central time, Court TV, NYPD Blue in 2002 and 2003. That rerun, I watched that like every night before I went to bed. But Sports Writer hours. But God, I miss those. I miss those simple times.
Upper Deck Jerk Guy, number 1, the Pistons may be the worst team in NBA history. 2, this year's basketball team may be the worst team in Spartan history. And 3, MSU Twitter needs to become Poco Curante before they all get anxiety attacks.
Hoping this isn't a porn star. A person who is careless or indifferent, like many porn stars.
Poco Curante. That's a good porn name.
Yeah, Poco Curante.
Damn.
Let's not do the thing where people, though, email in porn names and I start Googling them.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. You got me? Yeah, don't do that. We appreciate all of you and all of your terrific hot takes. We will be back, I believe, Friday. We'll figure this out, and we'll do a Groovy Doda Twitter question show. Thank you to our friends at Muskox and Muskox Quality Flannels. You've got until December 15th to get orders in for free shipping. That's gomuskox.com. Promo code HOFF for $15 off. Thanks to Midtown Brewing Company. Great place for just about any occasion. Go to midtownbrewing.net. Good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch in the Roof.